Chapter 412. The three devils following closely behind the high priest had strange appearances. The one walking at the front was a 3-meter-tall muscular man in black armor. This man had a stocky back and a bear-like waist. He was as sturdy as a bear demon, and his head was as large as a tiger's head. Just by looking at his body, one would not doubt that he had the terrifying strength to destroy mountains and rivers. What was even stranger was that he was carrying a black coffin made of meteoric iron that was taller than him. The 4-meter-long meteoric iron coffin weighed a few thousand kilograms. Its surface was engraved with ferocious patterns of devils, and it emitted a dense aura of death. As he stepped into the cave, he left deep footprints on the rocky ground. The muscular man followed the high priest to the Blood Devil King and bowed respectfully. He said in a deep voice, "Subordinate Hu Luanlai pays his respects to Lord Devil King." Hu Luanlai was at the 7th level of the Origin Core stage. He was one of the devil generals under the Blood Devil King. He had been guarding the Blood Devil tribe's palace. The Devil Clan man behind Hu Luanlai was in his early 20s. He wore black leather armor. He was tall and thin. He did not appear to be bulky. Instead, he was very strong and muscular. He was a standard handsome man in the Devil Clan. However, his face was a very strange yin and yang face. The left half of his face was the face of a male demon with a masculine temperament. The right half of his face was soft and seductive. It was obviously the face of a female devil. He carried 2 crescent-shaped sabers on his back. One was black and the other was white. He exuded an evil and seductive aura. After entering the cave, he bowed to the Blood Devil King and said solemnly, "Subordinate Yin Yang Fiend pays his respects to Lord Devil King." The Yin Yang Fiend's voice was also a mixture of male and female voices. It sounded incomparably strange. However, most people would be attracted by his strange Yin Yang face and would overlook his strength at the 8th level of the Origin Core stage. As for the last devil general to enter the cave, he was a short and skinny Devil Clan boy who was about 1 meter tall. He had the face of a young child, and his appearance and stature were that of a 6 or 7-year-old child. However, his dark red eyes occasionally flashed with cunning and malevolence, making him seem extremely bloodthirsty and cruel, which was completely inconsistent with his age. He came in front of the Blood Demon King, bowed, and said with a clear childish voice, "Subordinate Ghost I greets Lord Demon King." The 3 demon generals lined up in the cave and stood respectfully in front of the Blood Demon King. The Blood Demon King revealed a satisfied sneer and nodded slightly. "Very good. You have come at the right time. This king has an important task for you." Granny Ghost's gaze swept past the 3 demon generals and finally landed on Ghost Eye. She raised her eyebrows and asked doubtfully, "Blood Demon King, why is this demon general under your command a little baby who hasn't been weaned off milk? Could it be that there's no one else in your blood demon tribe? Even a kid like this can become a great general?" Hearing Granny Ghost's words, the 3 demon generals' faces changed. Huluan Lai and Inyang Sha both turned their heads to look at Granny Ghost, sneering playfully. Ghost Eye turned his head to look at Granny Ghost. His eyes flashed with a cold light as he shouted in a low voice, "Ugly old hag. Before you make fun of others, don't you want to look in the mirror and see what you are?" Granny Ghost's face changed, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She shouted angrily, "How dare you!" She sat on the throne of skeletons and made a spell with her left hand. With a shake of her hand, she shot out 3 balls of blue soul fire toward Ghost Eye. The 3 balls of blue soul fire contained an extremely cold and sharp power. Only a Heaven Origin Realm expert could withstand it. Ghost Eye's pupils shrank. He immediately activated his demon technique and formed a demon mist shield to cover himself. Bang! 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 The 3 balls of blue soul fire hit Ghost Eye. His body trembled, but he did not retreat half a step. Ghost Eye's demon mist shield was still intact, but the 3 balls of blue soul fire collapsed and dissipated. Seeing this, Granny Ghost frowned and let out a cry of surprise. This little thing took a hit from this old woman's burning soul raging flames, but it's actually unharmed? What is his cultivation level? Is he also a Heaven Origin Realm expert? That's impossible. When did the Blood Demon City have a second Heaven Origin Realm expert? At this moment, Ghost Eye stared at Granny Ghost. His pupils turned dark purple, releasing 2 beams of dark purple light that shot towards Granny Ghost at lightning speed. Granny Ghost felt that the 2 beams of purple light contained a terrifying power that could destroy one's soul. She was even more shocked. She quickly made a spell with her left hand and waved the dove head wand with her right hand. Blue soul fire covered the sky and condensed into a light shield in front of her. Bang! Bang! 2 streaks of dark purple light fiercely hit the blue fire shield. 2 loud, muffled sounds rang out, shaking the entire cave violently. The blue soul fire shield was broken. Ghost Eye withdrew the 2 beams of purple light and looked at Granny Ghost indifferently. Granny Ghost also stopped and said in surprise, "I didn't expect that you, who look like a weak kid, could be as powerful as a Heaven Origin Realm expert. Not only can you hide your cultivation level, but you have also mastered the ancient Ghost Eye technique. You have really opened my eyes. I didn't expect that you, who look the weakest among the 3 demon generals, could be the strongest." Then, she turned to the expressionless Blood Demon King and shouted, "Blood Demon King, you old bastard. Why didn't you remind me that you have cultivated such an elite demon general?" Blood Demon King looked calm and said indifferently, "Ghost Eye's cultivation level is not enough to hurt you. However, he won't lose anything if he fights with you." At this moment, the High Priest quickly explained to Granny Ghost, "Ghost Eye is the most outstanding genius of our Blood Demon tribe. He is also the Demon King's most valued general. Although Ghost Eye looks like he is only 6 or 7 years old, he is actually more than 30 years old. He has been gifted since he was young. His cultivation of Demon Dao cultivation techniques progressed at lightning speed, and his strength increased very quickly. When he was 20 years old, when his strength had just reached the origin core stage, an accident occurred during his cultivation. It caused his body to experience reverse growth, and his body and appearance became smaller and smaller. Now he has already reached the 9th level of the origin core stage, but his appearance is like a 6-year-old child. He also has the Ghost Eye technique that can hide his cultivation level, causing others to be unable to detect it and be defenseless." After the High Priest finished explaining, Blood Demon King sneered and added, "Hee hee. Ghost Eye is the sharpest and most insidious blade under this king's command. A trump card at a critical moment. Moreover, he hates it when others make fun of his appearance and age." Hearing this, Granny Ghost came to a realization. She nodded slightly and took a deep look at Ghost Eye. Then, she took out a dark red wooden doll from her sleeve and passed it to Blood Demon King. The wooden doll had a strand of hair wrapped around it, and mysterious symbols and markings were carved on it, making it seem extremely evil. Granny Ghost said in a solemn tone, "Blood Demon King, this soul bereavement doll that I meticulously crafted has Ji Tianxing's hair on it. It can help you track that kid's aura. If you want to send a demon general to capture him, you might as well make good use of this soul bereavement doll." Blood Demon King took the soul bereavement doll and studied it for a while before understanding how to use it. Chapter 413. The next morning, in Tianqing's courtyard, Ji Tianxing circulated his cultivation and cultivated for a day and night, and his cultivation advanced a little more. He was even closer to the 4th level of the origin core stage. He'd just finished cultivating when the maidservant Xiao Shuang entered the room and reported the news. "Senior Brother Ji, a guard from Sky Pillar Hall has come to deliver a message. The sect master has something important to discuss with you." "Yes, I know. You can leave." Ji Tianxing nodded, then stood up and walked out of the room. At the entrance of Tianxing's courtyard, a black-robed guard was silently waiting. Half an hour later, the black-robed guard brought him up Crimson Sky Peak and entered Chu Tianxing's secret room behind Sky Pillar Hall. The secret room was dimly lit, and Chu Tianxing was sitting upright on a large jade chair as he silently pondered. After Ji Tianxing entered the secret room, he arrived before Chu Tianxing and bowed. "Disciple greets Master. May I know what instructions Master has for summoning disciple?" Chu Tianxing lightly nodded and said with a gentle tone, "Tianxing, Master has a very important thing to give to an old friend. Yen'er has always been bitterly cultivating in closed-door cultivation to charge into the origin core stage. Yin Yao has yet to recover from her heavy injuries, and is recuperating in White Cloud Hall. Master can only pass this important task to you to complete. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a calm expression, "Disciple is willing to serve. Master, please tell me." Chu Tianxing lightly smiled. Master's old friend is titled Beast King. He's always been living in seclusion in Beast King Valley, with many spirit beasts as his companions. Beast King Valley is rather far from our sect, and it's extremely hidden and difficult to find. Master will give you a map later. You must carefully identify it. After arriving at Beast King Valley, you only need to speak the truth and state your identity. Then give this thing to the Beast King. After he finished speaking, he took out a square dark iron box from his spatial ring and passed it before Ji Tianxing. The dark iron box was set up with a formation, and people who didn't know the method to break it were utterly unable to open it and didn't know what was inside the box. Ji Tianxing stretched out his hand to receive the dark iron box and put it into his spatial ring. Then, Chu Tianxing gave him a map and told him to be careful before letting him leave. After Ji Tianxing left the secret room, he walked down the Scarlet Firmament Peak and rushed out of the Sky-Bearing sect. He carefully observed the map and quickly understood the specific location of the Beast King Valley. The Beast King Valley was located in the southwest of the Star Ancient Realm. It was more than 3,000 kilometers away from the Sky Pillar sect, and more than 1,000 kilometers away from the Star Platform in the center of the Ancient Realm. When he arrived at the square at the foot of the towering Sky Peak, he woke Qian Yu up from the 100 Treasures brocade pouch. Now, Qian Yu's strength had already recovered to the Yuan Dan stage. His body had grown to over 10 meters long, and his entire body flickered with an icy blue light. He looked both majestic and mighty, and also extremely gorgeous. Qian Yu revealed his true form and flew around Ji Tianxing twice. He asked excitedly, "Old Ji, where are we going? Are you going on an adventure again?" Previously, it had been cultivating in the 100 Treasures brocade pouch and had long felt bored and depressed. Ji Tianxing jumped onto its back and said with a smile, "It's not an adventure this time. I'm just helping Master deliver something. It's a bit far. Qian Yu, just keep flying southwest. It's about 3,000 kilometers away. We can stop and rest a few times on the way." Qian Yu immediately raised his head and said arrogantly, "It's only 3,000 kilometers. With my current strength, I don't need to rest at all." After saying that, he flapped his wings and flew high into the sky, carrying Ji Tianxing toward the southwest as fast as lightning. Ji Tianxing could clearly feel that after Qian Yu's strength had recovered to the Yuan Dan stage, his flying speed was nearly 50% faster than before. In the past, Qian Yu could only fly about 300 kilometers per hour, and he would have to stop and rest after flying for 1,000 kilometers. But now, Qian Yu's flying speed had greatly increased, and he estimated that he could fly about 500 kilometers per hour. Facing the rising sun, Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu hurried along, and they were in a very relaxed and happy mood. Unknowingly, 6 hours had passed. Qian Yu flew continuously for 1,500 kilometers, crossing countless mountains and rivers. He still did not feel tired, and his speed did not decrease in the slightest. Ji Tianxing sat on his back with nothing to do, so he silently circulated his energy to open up his meridians and increase his strength. At this time, Qian Yu was flying above a lush forest. Below them was a boundless primeval forest, filled with towering trees. There were also countless ferocious beasts and demonic beasts hidden within. Suddenly, Qian Yu saw a black shadow flying over the forest not far to its left, heading straight for it. Qian Yu took a closer look and found that the huge black shadow was neither a monster nor a human, but a huge long iron box. The huge iron box was about 10 meters long and 3 meters wide, and it looked a little strange. Seeing the huge iron box flying over, Qian Yu adjusted its direction and called out to Ji Tianxing through telepathy. "Old Ji, look, what the hell is that? It's flying towards us." Ji Tianxing hurriedly ended his cultivation and opened his eyes to take a look. Immediately he frowned. He immediately saw clearly that the huge black iron box was actually a huge black iron coffin. The surface of the black iron coffin was engraved with demonic patterns, as well as mysterious runes and symbols, and it emitted a gloomy demonic aura. "That's a coffin, let's be careful," Ji Tianqing said with a serious face. "The coffin can fly in the sky. It must be some kind of powerful magic item." "Qianyu, that coffin is coming for us, quickly avoid it." "Okay." Qianyu responded and quickly flew to the right, trying to avoid the strange coffin. However, the black iron coffin also increased its strength and suddenly sped up. Swoosh! The black iron coffin turned into a black shadow and streaked across the sky, catching up with Qianyu in the blink of an eye. When it was about 100 meters away from Qianyu, the black iron coffin suddenly released 4 black fog demonic auras, which shot towards them like pillars of light. "Old Ji, sit tight!" Qianyu shouted, and immediately flew with all its might, twisting its body to avoid the attack. Moreover, its body lit up with an icy blue brilliance, which condensed into a cold light shield, protecting itself and Ji Tianqing. Unfortunately, Qianyu was still not fast enough. It only managed to avoid 3 demonic light pillars, but it was still hit in the back by one of the demonic light pillars. Boom! With a muffled sound, the icy blue light shield on its body shattered into countless cold light fragments that scattered in the sky. The violent and unparalleled force of impact sent it tumbling and flying. Qianyu drew an arc in the sky and fell towards the primitive forest below. It tried its best to maintain its balance, and before it hit the ground, it finally neutralized the powerful impact. Chapter 414. The huge black iron coffin fell from the sky, carrying with it an unstoppable force and a torrential black fog. Qianyu had just stabilized himself and was unable to fly into the sky. There was no time for him to escape. At this critical moment, he could only make a prompt decision to dive into the vast forest and twist his body to avoid the black iron coffin's attack. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had already used his Kenshin battle robe to transform into a pair of golden wings. He flapped his wings and flew into the air. He faced the black iron coffin that was descending from the sky. With a cold expression, he activated his true essence and brazenly pulled out the black dragon sword. "Dragon soars from the 9th heaven." Roar! The moment the black dragon sword was unsheathed, an earth-shattering dragon's roar resounded above the forest. A 10-meter-long dragon shadow appeared like a dazzling divine dragon. It burst forth with an unstoppable momentum and slashed at the black iron coffin. Bang! In a dull sound, the dragon shadow sword collided with the black iron coffin, creating a violent shockwave. Swoosh! The terrifying force spread out in all directions, breaking all the trees within a 100-meter radius, and causing them to collapse with a rumbling sound. Qianyu was hit by the violent shockwave and instantly fell into the dense forest. Ji Tianqing was also knocked back by the terrifying force. He flew back dozens of meters and landed on the grassy ground in the forest. As for the huge black iron coffin, it ruthlessly smashed into the forest, creating a loud bang. A deep pit dozens of meters in diameter was immediately formed in the ground, sending dirt and dust into the air. The violent shockwave spread out, destroying the forest within a 1,000-meter radius and crushing countless trees into pieces. After a long while, the loud noise that reverberated between heaven and earth dissipated. Ji Tianqing and Qianyu hurriedly gathered together and looked at the black iron coffin in the deep pit warily. "Old Ji, are you hurt?" "Of course I'm fine. What about you?" How could this king be hurt by a stupid coffin?" The two of them secretly exchanged a few words and slowly approached the huge pit, wanting to see what was going on with the black iron coffin. At this moment, the sound of metal colliding rang out from the deep pit. Ji Tianqing and Qian, you had just reached the edge of the pit when they saw the black iron coffin at the bottom of the pit suddenly open its lid. After the heavy lid opened, a turbulent black fog gushed out of the coffin. A huge figure with a body as sturdy as an iron tower, more than 3 meters tall, rushed out of the coffin. Swoosh! The black figure was extremely fast. He jumped out of the pit in an instant and stood at the edge of the pit, facing Ji Tianqing across the pit. Only now did Ji Tianqing see that this tall and burly devil was wearing a set of black armor, and his entire body was surging with devil mist. Unfortunately, his entire body was wrapped in armor, so it was impossible to see his appearance clearly. Ji Tianxing, I've finally found you. The dark red eyes of the armored giant stared at Ji Tianxing. His voice was deep and cold as he growled. Ji Tianxing frowned and looked at him. Although I've never seen this demon before, he's obviously here for me. He must be a subordinate of the Blood Demon King. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer, and he said in a disdainful tone, Demon Remnant, I Ji Tianxing, do not kill nameless pawns. Tell me your name. Haha, you human reptile, you're really arrogant. The armored giant sneered and said in a deep voice, I'm the third demon general under the Blood Demon King, Huluan Lai. Before Ji Tianxing could speak, Qian Yu sneered contemptuously. Big guy, with your little strength, you dare to kill us? I think you're tired of living. The Blood Demon King looks down on old Ji too much. He actually sent you, the third demon general. Where's your first demon general? Tell him to come out and die. Huluan Lai was so angry that his eyebrows twitched. His dark red eyes flashed with a bloody light. You lowly little fox, I'll tear you to pieces immediately. Qian Yu did not back down. He scolded angrily. You ugly reptile, I'll chop you up and feed you to the dogs. Then he added, forget it. You look so cruel and disgusting that even the dogs wouldn't dare to eat you. You're courting death. Huluan Lai was so angry that he flew into a rage. He suddenly shouted and waved his hands to form a Demon Dao seal. He used a Demon Dao secret technique to control the coffin in the deep pit. Instantly, the 10-meter-long black iron coffin turned into a black shadow and flew out of the deep pit. It flew toward Qian Yu. Ji Tianxing could see that Huluan Lai had reached the 7th level of the origin core stage. He was very powerful. The black iron coffin was also very strange and very powerful. Qian Yu had just recovered to the origin core stage not long ago. He was no match for Huluan Lai. When he saw the black iron coffin flying toward Qian Yu, he charged over without hesitation. He swung the black dragon sword and slashed out a huge golden sword ray. Boom! The 10-meter-long golden sword ray collided with the black iron coffin. A loud bang instantly sounded. Ji Tianxing was pushed back more than 10 meters. His feet drew 2 deep grooves in the grass. The black iron coffin was also sent flying back by the violent impact. Huluan Lai was stunned when he saw this. His eyes that were filled with killing intent flashed with surprise and surprise. I didn't expect that you, who are only at the 3rd level of the origin core stage, could block my blood transformation demon coffin. Unbelievable. No wonder Lord Demon King views you as his #1 enemy. You're worthy of my full strength. Qian Yu flapped his wings and flew into the air. He looked down at Huluan Lai and scolded disdainfully. What are you pretending for, reptile of the devil clan? Do you dare not use your full strength? Old Ji will cut you into pieces with 1 slash of my sword. Then I'll roast you into skewers and give you to your Blood Demon King as a midnight snack. Huluan Lai was once again enraged by Qian Yu. Dense killing intent erupted from his body and condensed into crimson flames. However, he chose to ignore Qian Yu in the air. He used his arts to control the blood transformation demon coffin and used all his strength to attack Ji Tianxing. Blood drenches the army. The huge blood transformation demon coffin turned into a black blur. It exploded with destructive power and shot toward Ji Tianxing like a bolt of lightning. Not only that, but the demon coffin also spewed out 16 crimson pillars of light that enveloped Ji Tianxing's figure. In an instant, everything within 100 meters was dyed dark red by the crimson pillars of light. The forest around the deep pit was filled with the thick stench of blood. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing did not hesitate to put away the black dragon sword. His left hand pulled Kenshin's battle robe in front of him as he waved his right hand and released a huge flaming sword ray. Crimson Dragon Flash. The 10-meter-long crimson sword ray was wreathed in blazing flames and condensed into the image of a flaming divine dragon. Ji Tianxing roared and activated the crimson dragon sword ray. It exploded with full power and shot toward Huluan Lai. That's right. Chapter 415. Bang, bang, bang. With deafening booms, the blood demonic coffin and 10 pillars of crimson flame engulfed Ji Tianxing. Each pillar of crimson flame contained a berserk might and powerful corrosive energy enough to render everything within 1,000 meters barren. The full-force attack of the blood demonic coffin was enough to shatter a palace. But the Qinshin battle robe stood in front of Ji Tianxing, radiating a dazzling golden light. The tinsome pillars of crimson flame struck the Qinshin battle robe, but they failed to leave a single mark on it. All of them were blasted to pieces. The blood-dissipating demon coffin also hit Ji Tianxing, but it was blocked by the sword god's battle robe. It was knocked back by the divine golden light, and fell into the deep pit. However, Ji Tianxing's scarlet dragon flash sent Huluanlai flying. Huluanlai crashed into the forest. In the next moment, the bloody light shards that blotted out the sky and covered the earth burst out in all directions, scattering in the forest within a radius of 1,000 meters. Berserk energy exploded, obliterating the forest and reducing it to rubble. The power of the shards of crimson light quickly scorched half of the mountain, turning all the flowers and trees into black ash. Ji Tianxing stood unscathed in the rubble, his body flickering with the divine golden light, and exuding a confident and domineering aura. Huluanlai crawled out of the rubble, shaking his head as he shook off the dust on his body. Although he had been sent flying by Crimson Dragon Flash, the black armor he wore had blocked more than half of the power of Crimson Dragon Flash. He had not been injured, only the breastplate on his armor had been shattered. He stood in the blackened ruins, savagely glaring at Ji Tianxing, his body surging with crimson light. Ji Tianxing, this god truly underestimated you. However, with your meager strength, you're only fit to scratch this god's itch. Today you will undoubtedly die. Qianyu flew through the air, silently unleashing a barrage of ice blades and frost swords, as well as 2 icy blue pillars of light that shot toward Huluanlai. Huluanlai was caught unprepared. He was immediately smashed to the ground by the 2 icy blue light pillars, then rolled on the ground by the hundreds of ice blades and frost swords. His armor clanked loudly. Although he was not injured, he was beaten up badly by Qianyu. His armor was frozen. Qianyu sneered mockingly. Scratch your sister's itch? Can I give you another bath? Huluanlai crawled up in a sorry state, and released his blood flame demonic light, which quickly melted the layer of ice. He looked up at Qianyu, gritted his teeth and cursed. You little bastard, just you wait. After I kill Ji Tianxing, I'll immediately come and kill you. Ha ha ha. You idiot. You're just a fart. Qianyu laughed in disdain. She turned her head and faced him with her butt, proudly wagging her 12 big furry tails. Huluanlai was even more enraged, almost going berserk. Ji Tianxing used this chance to unleash all his strength. He waved his palms, unleashing a massive sword aura that slashed at Huluanlai. Water flow severance. The 10-meter-long golden sword aura was like a massive blade that could cleave apart the heavens. It descended from the heavens with a destructive power, instantly engulfing Huluanlai's body. Huluanlai's face paled, his eyes brimming with fear. He subconsciously controlled the blood demonic coffin, using it to block this terrifying sword aura above his head. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion reverberated through the mountains. The golden sword aura, that could cleave apart a river, had been blocked by the blood demonic coffin, instantly exploding into fragments. The blood demonic coffin trembled and buzzed as it crashed into the ground, creating a crater 20-some meters across. Huluanlai was also sent flying, tumbling to the ground 20 meters away. Seizing this opportunity, Ji Tianxing didn't hesitate to rush up and pursue. He ignored the blood demonic coffin in the crater and charged at Huluanlai like a gust of wind. Huluanlai was still lying in the scorched earth, unable to get up. He had no chance to resist. Ji Tianxing immediately used all his strength, using the 5th move of the Flying Star Sword technique. Shatter the mountains and rivers. His figure flashed around Huluanlai, constantly unleashing massive sword auras with his palms. Swish, swish, swish. In the blink of an eye, more than 1,000 golden and flaming sword auras had appeared in the sky, crisscrossing. A moment later, more than 1,000 sword auras exploded with power. Bang! With a deafening boom, the area within 100 meters was filled with sword auras, transforming into a world of golden light and flame. The scorched earth, the massive crater, the blood demonic coffin in the crater, and Huluanlai lying in the rubble all suffered from the countless sword auras. The complete power of Shatter the Mountain and River was truly peerlessly terrifying. The sword auras shattered the earth in a radius of 100 meters, riddling it with ravines. But as Huluan Lai lay in the rubble, using his armor to block the sword auras, his eyes flashed with a triumphant sneer. He had long ago secretly controlled the blood demonic coffin to use his secret technique. Devour the heavens and earth. The lid of the blood demonic coffin silently opened, unleashing a boundless black fog of demonic energy that condensed into a terrifying vortex that engulfed Ji Tianxing. At this moment, Ji Tianxing had just unleashed the power of Shatter the Mountain and River, so he had no time to guard against the blood demonic coffin. Whoosh! His body was engulfed by the black fog vortex, and before he could even struggle or flee, he was swallowed up. The black fog vortex churned as it swiftly returned to the blood demonic coffin. The coffin lid, which was as heavy as a mountain, also closed with a bang. The sword auras in the sky gradually scattered, and the blood demonic coffin flew back to Huluan Lai's side. Qianyu flew through the air, watching with his own eyes as Ji Tianxing was swallowed up by the blood demonic coffin. How could this be? How could old Ji be defeated so easily? He didn't dare to believe this result and anxiously called out. But the blood demonic coffin remained silent, not moving at all. Huluan Lai crawled out of the rubble, twisting his body a few times. His black armor had helped him block the sword auras, leaving him completely unharmed. But the black armor he wore had already been shattered by Shatter the Mountain and River. With a few cracking sounds, the black armor broke into a pile of fragments and fell on the ruins. Huluan Lai nonchalantly threw off the pieces of armor, used his arts to make the blood demonic coffin 3 meters long, and carried it on his back. He raised his head to Qianyu in the sky and savagely grinned. Haha, Ji Tianxing has already been sealed in the blood demonic coffin by this god. Anyone sealed in the demonic coffin will never be able to escape. They will all die. In less than 2 hours, his flesh and soul will decompose into a puddle of blood, leaving behind only a skeleton. Lowly little fox, weren't you very arrogant just now? Chapter 416. Qianyu was keenly aware of Ji Tianxing's strength and fighting power, and he also knew that he had several extremely powerful trump cards. He could not believe that Ji Tianxing would be devoured by the blood dissipation demon coffin and lose to Huluan Lai. But the blood dissipation demon coffin remained motionless, and Ji Tianxing still had not appeared. Qianyu's heart was filled with worry and grief, and his large, clear eyes burned with rage. At this moment, Huluan Lai slowly raised his palms, a bloody light gathering in his palms. He looked up at Qianyu and sneered. Cheap fox, you can say your last words now. As he spoke, he thrust out his palms, unleashing 2 beams of bloody light that shot into the heavens at Qianyu. The bloody beams of light moved with incredible speed, almost faster than lightning. In a flash, the 2 beams of bloody light soared 100 meters into the air and arrived in front of Qianyu. In this moment of life and death, Qianyu unleashed all its potential and twisted its body to dodge. However, it was only able to dodge one of the blood-red light beams before it was struck in the abdomen by the other one. Boom! A muffled explosion was heard. Qianyu's protective shield of light was instantly obliterated by the bloody beam of light. It was also sent flying, howling in pain as it tumbled toward the base of the mountain. Huluan Lai immediately began to run toward the base of the mountain. Once Qianyu fell from the sky, he would kill her to appease the hatred in his heart. But Qianyu drew an arc through the sky, and just as it was about to hit the base of the mountain, it flapped its wings and struggled back into the sky. It had only been lightly injured and could still quickly fly. Huluan Lai instantly frowned at this sight, his face turning dark and gloomy. Lowly beast, this god said that he would kill you, so I won't let you escape alive. He once more raised his palms, using all his strength to unleash the bloody beams of light. But at this moment, the blood dissipation demon coffin on his back suddenly trembled. Boom! A muffled boom came from the blood dissipation demon coffin, causing Huluan Lai to pale in shock. What happened? Anyone who is put into the blood dissipating demon coffin will have their true yuan, flesh, and soul quickly devoured. How could that kid have the strength to resist? He had a bad premonition, and hurriedly placed the blood dissipation demon coffin on the ground. He wanted to cast a spell to check the situation inside the demon coffin. At this moment, the heavy lid of the blood dissipation demon coffin flew off without any warning. Boom! With a muffled boom, the heavy coffin lid flew into the air and exploded into pieces that filled the air. A dazzling golden light flew out of the blood-dissipating demon coffin and landed on the ground next to Huluan Lai. The golden light receded, revealing a handsome and mighty figure. It was Ji Tianqing, dressed in a white robe with a Kenshin battle robe on his shoulders. Huluan Lai was completely dumbfounded. Looking at the shattered coffin lid and the empty coffin, he was completely dumbfounded. His eyes widened in shock, and he slowly turned his head stiffly to look at Ji Tianqing, who was 10 steps behind him, with an expression of disbelief. Ji Tianqing, you were clearly devoured by my blood dissipation demon coffin. How could you have escaped? For countless years, he had used the blood dissipation demon coffin to devour countless primal core experts, and it had never failed. Even a human expert who was half a step into the sky origin stage had been devoured by the blood dissipation demon coffin and turned into a skeleton. Huluan Lai could not believe that the third-level primal core stage Ji Tianqing had not only shattered the coffin lid and escaped the blood dissipation demon coffin, but he was also completely unharmed. This was simply a miracle. Ji Tianqing looked at him indifferently, and a mocking sneer appeared in his clear and deep eyes. Haha, you want to trap me with this broken coffin of yours? Naive. I only wanted to end the battle as soon as possible and destroy your blood dissipation demon coffin, so I willingly allowed myself to be devoured by it. Now do you understand? Huluan Lai looked at him in shock, and finally understood the reason. He nodded slightly and said, so that's how it is. Ji Tianqing raised his left palm and activated the power of the Crimson True Fire, causing his entire arm to turn red like lava. Since you understand, then die in peace. Burning Sky Palm. With a low roar, he suddenly waved his left arm of crimson flame and slammed his palm toward Huluan Lai. A giant flaming palm that blotted out the sun appeared and instantly devoured Huluan Lai and the blood dissipation demon coffin. No! Huluan Lai had just let out a cry of despair when his voice abruptly stopped. Bang! With a deafening explosion, Huluan Lai's body was shattered by the burning sky palm, and his body was burned into a large pile of black ash. The mysterious and evil blood dissipation demon coffin was also shattered by the burning sky palm and burned into black ash. The giant flaming palm that could destroy the heavens and the earth blasted out another dozen miles and mercilessly slammed into a large mountain. Bang! With a heaven-shaking boom, the verdant mountain covered in towering trees was instantly engulfed in a sea of fire. Half of the mountain collapsed under the burning sky palm, sending dust and stone flying into the air, and creating a cloud of dust and black smoke that blotted out the heavens. The massive boom resounded for a radius of 100 li, endlessly reverberating through the mountains. A prairie fire soared into the sky, illuminating the surrounding several dozen li in red. More than half of the 10,000 zhang tall mountain collapsed, turning it into a small hill. Ji Tianqing withdrew his left palm and looked up at the sky, a smile on his lips. Qianyu, if you keep spacing out, you'll fall down. Qianyu had been filled with anxiety and anger, but when it saw him charge out of the blood dissipation demon coffin and instantly kill Huluan Lai with a palm, it was instantly stunned. Upon hearing Ji Tianqing's voice, it immediately cheered in delight and rushed back to Ji Tianqing's side. Ha ha ha! Old Ji! I knew it! You're so powerful, so how could you have been swallowed up by a crappy coffin? Old Ji, that palm of yours just now was truly too shocking. Of course. Ji Tianqing chuckled and jumped onto its back, allowing it to fly back to the sky and continue on their journey. Qianyu was extremely excited. As it flew, it couldn't help but ask, Old Ji, that burning sky palm you used just now was terrifyingly powerful. With this ultimate move, even if you encounter an expert several levels above you, you can kill them with a single palm. In the future, if you encounter a demon remnant, you can immediately strike them with a palm, and if they don't die, strike again. Haha, just thinking about it makes me excited. Ji Tianqing was amused by its words and hurriedly explained, You're dreaming, but the burning sky palm is my trump card. I can't use it lightly. Now that I've reached the origin core realm, and have abundant true essence, using the burning sky palm 3 times will exhaust all my true essence. I can only use it again when my true essence recovers. Chapter 417. In the cave where the Blood Demon King and Granny Ghost were temporarily staying, Yin Yang Fiend sat on a large rock in the corner of the cave, playing with a pair of black and white scimitars in boredom. The 2 scimitars had shrunk to 3 inches long, and were flying up and down between his fingers like a gust of wind, emitting strands of cold saber chi. Whenever he was bored waiting, he would take down the 2 scimitars on his back, and play with them with his 5 fingers. Not far from him, Ghost Eye sat on a green rock with his eyes closed resting. His body was surrounded by a dazzling purple light, clearly cultivating the Ghost Eye pupil technique. Ever since the Blood Demon King had sent Hulu and Lai on a mission, Yin Yang Fiend and Ghost Eye had nothing to do but wait in the cave. As for the Blood Demon King and Granny Ghost, they are sitting on their thrones, silently cultivating. Suddenly, the Blood Demon King seemed to sense something. His expression changed slightly, and he opened his eyes. He took out an oval-shaped crystal from his sleeve, and saw that the crystal was already shattered with numerous cracks. This was Hulu and Lai's soul lamp. There was originally a ball of purple flame in the crystal, but it had been extinguished. The extinguished soul lamp and the shattered crystal undoubtedly meant that Hulu and Lai was dead. The Blood Demon King frowned, his expression darkened, and his body emitted a cold aura. Hulu and Lai is dead? How is this possible? He growled in a low voice, his body trembling with anger. His hand crushed the cracked soul lamp into pieces. Hearing the voice, Yin Yang Fiend and Ghost Eye were startled awake, and looked up at the Blood Demon King. When they saw Hulu and Lai's soul lamp shatter, their expressions changed. Yin Yang Fiend curled his lips and sneered disdainfully. He said in a strange tone, "Haha, how unexpected." Before Hulu and Lai left, he even swore that he would capture Ji Tianxing and bring him back to celebrate. Who would have thought that only a few hours had passed, and he's already dead? Tsk. Gui Tong was still expressionless, and his eyes were extremely cold as he said in an indifferent tone. Hulu and Lai had a strength at the 7th level of the origin core stage, but he was actually killed by Ji Tianxing. There must be something wrong here. Either Ji Tianxing's strength is not at the 3rd level of the Yuan Dan stage, or Ji Tianxing has the help of an expert. Yin Yang Fiend grinned and said in a strange tone, "Lord Demon King has already used the soul bereavement doll to investigate. Ji Tianxing is acting alone. There are no experts protecting him at all. In my view, it's that idiot Hulu and Lai who underestimated his opponent." Ghost Eye frowned, but didn't say anything. Although the 3 demon generals were the generals of the Blood Demon tribe, and the right-hand men of the Blood Demon King, the 3 demon generals were different. However, the 3 of them were all freaks. They were proud and arrogant, and they did not get along well with each other. They also did not have any feelings for each other. This was a very common thing in the demon race, not only in the Blood Demon tribe, but also in other demon tribes. After all, it was the nature of all demons to be cold-blooded, merciless, and bloodthirsty. At this moment, the Blood Demon King stood up with a gloomy expression. His entire body surged with killing intent. Ji Tianxing, that lowly worm. I've really underestimated him. He actually killed Hulu and Lai. I'll personally capture him and extract his bloodline. Yin Yang Fiend frowned when he heard this. He immediately stood up and rushed to the Blood Demon King in a flash. He said with a smile, "Lord Demon King, your status is so honorable. How can I let you personally take action? Isn't that too much of a praise for that little worm Ji Tianxing? Moreover, it shows that our Blood Demon tribe is incompetent and doesn't have a strong general to use. He's just a lowly human at the 3rd level of the Yuan Dan stage. I'll capture him now and make him beg for mercy in front of you like a dead dog." The Blood Demon King stared at the Yin Yang Fiend and frowned as he pondered for a moment. He nodded slightly and said, "Yes, that kid isn't qualified for me to personally take action. Moreover, I've been busy secretly casting spells to monitor the Sky Pillar Sect's Spirit Vein Grand Formation. I really can't get away." Yin Yang Fiend, since you've taken the initiative to ask for orders, I'll hand this heavy responsibility to you. Hearing this, the Yin Yang Fiend instantly revealed a gloomy sneer and licked his lips with bloodthirst. As you command, Lord Demon King. I'll go deal with that little worm right now. After he finished speaking, the Yin Yang Fiend transformed into a black mist of devil qi and rushed out of the cave like a gale. Ji Tianxing rode on Qianyu and flew high in the sky for 2 hours before descending on a mountain peak to rest. Qianyu suffered some light injuries from the battle earlier and consumed a lot of strength. His body was slightly weak. He used the burning sky palm again. Not only did he consume almost 40% of his true origin, he even took the opportunity to open up a meridian. He obtained a breakthrough in the fierce battle and would soon advance to the 4th level of the origin core stage. Qianyu descended on the mountain peak and entered the 100 treasures brocade pouch to rest. Ji Tianxing found an open space near the cliff on the mountain peak and casually set up a defensive formation. Then, he sat on a large millstone and began to circulate his energy and cultivate. This mountain peak was 3,000 meters tall and had the highest terrain in the group of mountains. The heaven and earth spirit energy was also the most abundant. Ji Tianxing held a spirit stone in each of his hands and ceaselessly absorbed the spirit energy within the spirit stones to swiftly recover his true origin. For hours later, his cultivation had completely recovered and reached its peak state. Subsequently, he went all out to temper the sword vein and quickly increased his strength. He currently possessed 14 meridians, 13 of which were sword veins. Only the newly opened meridians had yet to be tempered. So long as he tempered this newly opened meridian into a sword vein, he would be able to naturally increase his strength. Time silently flowed by, and the sun in the sky ceaselessly fell to the west. Soon 6 hours had passed. At this time, it was already night. The gloomy veil of night enveloped the heaven and earth, and waves of beast roars sounded out in the group of mountains. A round moon gradually rose, illuminating the pure and flawless moonlight that shone onto the mountain peak and enveloped Ji Tianxing's figure. Under the hazy moonlight, his entire body flickered with a faint golden light and emitted a powerful aura. Suddenly, the vast energy accumulated within his body became incomparably vast, and his aura doubled. Without a doubt, he'd finally successfully tempered the 14th sword vein and broke through to the 4th level of the origin core stage. Ji Tianxing slowly stopped cultivating and opened his eyes, and a wisp of gratification flashed within his eyes. Since I fused with the Kenshin bloodline and reached the 3rd level of the origin core stage out of thin air, it has almost been a month. I finally relied on my own cultivation to increase my strength by another level. He muttered to himself, then stood up and released Qianyu from the 100 treasures brocade pouch and prepared to continue on his way. Right at this moment, a ball of dark red blood light abruptly lit up in the gloomy forest 100 meters in front of him. That ball of scarlet blood light condensed into 2 crescent-shaped saber lights that were 5 meters long, and they slashed over with a speed like lightning. Whoosh, whoosh. Chapter 418. Ji Tianxing was happy that his strength had doubled. After reaching the 4th level of the origin core stage, his spiritual sense had become even more powerful, and his detection range had increased to a radius of 40 meters. When the 2 crescent-shaped saber lights cut through the night sky, he already had a premonition of danger. He instinctively used the Kenshin battle robe to cover his body and raised his head to look at the dark forest. The 2 crescent-shaped saber lights arrived in front of him and fiercely slashed the invisible defensive formation. Crack! With a muffled sound, the 5-colored light barrier was immediately shattered into pieces by the 2 crescent-shaped saber lights. Subsequently, the 2 saber lights struck him at the same time, but they were blocked by the Kenshin battle robe. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled sounds exploded out. The scarlet crescent-shaped saber lights collapsed and shattered, but the Kenshin battle robe was undamaged. Ji Tianxing stood on the large millstone and quietly held the black dragon sword in his right hand. His gaze was sharp like a sword as he looked at the dark forest. Another evil beast from the devil clan has come to die. His tone was cold and mocking as he shouted in a low voice. His entire body emitted an extremely strong battle intent and domineering aura. Qian Yu also revealed his enormous body, that was over 10 meters long. He hovered above the cliff and coldly stared at the forest. In the next moment, a tall Devil Clan man walked out of the dark forest. He wore black leather armor and carried a black and white curved saber on his back. He had a face that was half male and half female. This person was the Yin Yang Fiend. His steps were vigorous as he stepped over the rocks and calmly arrived at the open space. He stood on a huge rock 30 meters in front of Ji Tianxing. Haha, I was worried that you would escape after hearing the news, so I rushed over at full speed. I didn't expect that a little reptile like you would always stay here. What? You guessed that I would come to take your dog life. So you resigned yourself to your fate and waited for death here. The Yin Yang Fiend's voice was extremely strange. It was a mixture of half male and half female, and it was extremely uncomfortable to listen to. After Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu saw his appearance, they instantly frowned and revealed a surprised expression. Qian Yu's face was filled with disgust and disdain as he cursed. Oi! You're neither a man nor a woman. How could your parents give birth to you? You look so weird, so why do you have to jump out and discuss people? You are simply tormenting my young heart. Just looking at you makes me want to cry. Hearing your androgynous voice, oh my god, it really hurts my ears. The Yin Yang baleful Chi's face twisted in anger. His eyes were filled with rage and killing intent. You ugly and disgusting long-haired beast. I'll skin you alive, pull out your tendons and dig out your heart and bones. Qian Yu suddenly put on a frightened look and said with a sobbing voice, Old Ji, this Yin Yang devil looks too scary. Old Ji, let's go home. It's too dangerous out there. There are always some extremely ugly demon race reptiles, using their disgusting faces to challenge my little heart. The Yin Yang Fiend was enraged. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He was originally full of confidence, and had a condescending attitude. He looked at Ji Tianxing, as if he was looking at a dead man. But he did not expect this demon fox to be so eloquent. With just a few words, she had made him fly into a rage. Those roundabout words were even more vicious than the filthy curses. They were more effective at stimulating his pride and igniting his anger. But the Yin Yang Fiend quickly suppressed his anger and calmed down. After all, his target was Ji Tianxing, not a demon fox. Ji Tianxing, I am the Yin Yang Fiend, a demon general under the Blood Demon King. If you know what's good for you, surrender obediently. If you still want to resist, I will let you taste the taste of 1,000 cuts. The Yin Yang Fiend stared at Ji Tianxing with a murderous look. His tone was cold and bloody. Ji Tianxing was not afraid. His expression did not change. He looked at the Yin Yang Fiend indifferently and said coldly, Qian Yu is right. You're really too ugly. It's not your fault that you're ugly. Jumping out to discuss people is a heinous crime. The Yin Yang Fiend suppressed his anger with great difficulty. Once again, it burst out violently. If Ji Tianxing was full of curses and said these words to him, perhaps he would not be so angry. But Ji Tianxing's face was serious, and his tone was solemn as he gave this evaluation. How could he stand this? Ah, Ji Tianxing, you lowly ant ugly monkey. I will cut you 3,600 times to vent my anger. The Yin Yang Fiend roared in rage, and reached out to pull out a pair of machetes on his back. Blood Dragon Slash. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He waved the Yin Yang dual machetes wildly with both hands, drawing out 36 blood-red rays of light that attacked Ji Tianxing fiercely. The 36 blood-red rays of light condensed into 4 blood-red flood dragons in midair. They stretched out their claws and teeth ferociously, and pounced on Ji Tianxing. In an instant, the dark night sky within 100 meters was illuminated by the 4 blood-red flood dragons, turning it red. The biting cold night wind from the mountain peak could not blow away the thick and pungent smell of blood. Ji Tianxing's figure was instantly drowned by the 4 blood-red flood dragons. Haha, I've just improved my strength. You're just right for me to test it out. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing's expression did not change. He sneered indifferently. Ugly, I'll show you a real divine dragon. As soon as he finished speaking, His right hand gripped the hilt of the black dragon sword tightly. He used all his strength and pulled out the black dragon sword with a clang. 9 heavens dragon soars. Roar! The moment the black dragon sword was unsheathed, a dragon's roar that shook the 9 heavens resounded in the night sky. Within 100 miles, countless ferocious demonic beasts were hunting for food. They were all frightened by the dragon's roar and trembled and went limp. A 10-meter-long divine dragon shadow appeared in an instant. It tore the dark night sky apart and slashed at the 4 blood-red flood dragons fiercely. Kaboom! The 4 blood-red flood dragons collided with the divine dragon sword shadow with a thunderous boom. Suddenly, the 4 blood-red flood dragons exploded into thousands of blood-red fragments and scattered in the night sky above the mountain peak. The divine dragon sword shadow was still as powerful as before. It struck the yin-yang fiend that had no time to dodge like a thunderbolt. Bang! With a dull explosion, the yin-yang fiend was sent flying by the sword light. It rolled back into the forest dozens of meters away and crashed into several trees. At this time, the dazzling divine dragon sword shadow gradually dissipated. Ji Tianxing's left hand formed a sword sign, and his right hand held the black dragon sword. He stood tall and straight on the millstone, exuding an extremely domineering sword qi. The night wind blew, and his clothes fluttered. The golden battle robe on his shoulders also fluttered. In the dark night sky behind him, a huge and bright full moon sprinkled down endless hazy moonlight, illuminating his figure. Chapter 419. The yin-yang fiend charged out of the gloomy forest. He circulated his energy to shake off the dirt and grass on his body. Gripping the yin-yang sabers in his hands, he coldly stared at Ji Tianxing. Seeing Ji Tianxing's extraordinary figure standing with his sword in hand, his eyes surged with thick killing intent and hatred. I didn't expect a little beast like you to have some ability. No wonder that idiot Healenly was careless and died at your hands. He curled his lips into a sinister sneer. This is good too. Prey that can struggle and resist is much more enjoyable to trample on. Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly, a cold light flashing through his eyes. He said in a disdainful tone, "Killing you is as easy as flipping my hand." As he spoke, his figure flashed through the night, turning into a golden blur as he charged at the yin-yang fiend. In the blink of an eye, he was 10 meters away from the yin-yang fiend. Waving the black dragon sword, he unleashed 32 dazzling beams of light that enveloped an area of 10 meters around the yin-yang fiend. Just in time, the yin-yang fiend growled. Using all his strength, he desperately swung the yin-yang sabers, unleashing a barrage of saber beams. 32 golden sword beams collided with the crisscrossing saber beams, instantly creating a series of dull booms. Bang bang bang! The saber beams and sword beams simultaneously collapsed, exploding into hundreds of light fragments that scattered in all directions. The violent energy formed a hurricane that spread out in all directions, blowing up the sand and pebbles on the mountain peak. The grass and trees on the ground were pulverized and sent flying into the sky. Demonic blood saber. The yin-yang fiend growled. Activating his lifetime's worth of energy, he used his ultimate killing move. Blood-red light surged out of his body and spread out in all directions, covering an area of 100 meters. The gloomy night was dyed dark red. The area of 100 meters around the mountain peak was transformed into a boundless sea of blood, filling the air with a pungent smell of blood. The yin-yang sabers surged with bloody light, condensing into 2 10-meter-long blades of bloody light that slashed down at lightning speed. Whoosh! 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 Ji Tianxing's figure was enveloped by the boundless sea of blood, as if he was in a quagmire, unable to move an inch. He could only struggle with all his might. The dark red blood light contained a powerful corrosive power, desperately trying to erode his true essence. Fortunately, he had the divine Kenshin bloodline, and was not afraid of the corrosion of the demonic light. However, the 2 blood-red blades that descended from the sky instantly arrived above his head, and were about to hit him. At this critical moment, he had no time to perform the flying star sword technique. He could only use the Kenshin battle robe to cover his body and resist with all his strength. Bang bang! In the next moment, the gigantic blood-red blade of light slashed down on Qinshin's battle robe, causing two dull thuds. Qinshin's battle robe was still shining with golden light, not leaving a single mark on it. Ji Tianxing was also safe and sound. However, he was sent flying back by the violent impact. He flew back dozens of meters in the sea of blood and fell down the cliff. "Old Ji, be careful." At this critical moment, Qian Yu let out a cry of alarm. He immediately turned into an icy blue stream of light and rushed down the cliff. However, he was a little too slow and could not catch Ji Tianxing in time. Seeing this scene, the yin-yang malevolent spirit suddenly laughed with a hideous expression. "Ha ha, a worm is a worm after all. I only used one move, and you're going to die on the spot." As he laughed wildly, the yin-yang malevolent spirit rushed through the sea of blood and rushed to the edge of the cliff. He swung his yin-yang dual blades again and slashed out two blood-red blades. "Go to hell, little worm." As he shouted angrily, two blood-red blades that were more than 10 meters long slashed down from the sky toward Ji Tianxing. From the yin-yang malevolent spirit's point of view, Ji Tianxing was in midair and falling down the cliff. There was nowhere for him to borrow strength or dodge. If he slashed down with these two blades, Ji Tianxing would definitely be killed on the spot. Even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. However, a scene that left him completely dumbfounded appeared. Just as the blood-red blades were about to hit Ji Tianxing, the golden battle robe that Ji Tianxing was wearing turned into a pair of golden wings. Swoosh! His figure flashed like a golden stream of light and flew 20 meters away in an instant, avoiding the blood-red blades. Boom! Boom! In the deafening sound, the two blood-red blades slashed the edge of the cliff, creating two huge ravines in the cliff and collapsing an area of 100 meters. At the same time, Ji Tianxing had flown back to the mountain peak and was above the yin-yang malevolent spirit's head. He had already put away the black dragon sword. His palms were surging with a bright golden light, and his body was emitting a fierce sword intent. Crimson Dragon Flash. With a low shout, he released a huge flaming sword aura that fell from the sky toward the yin-yang malevolent spirit. The dazzling fire circled around the 10-meter-long sword aura and formed the shadow of a flaming divine dragon. Boom! In the deafening sound, the yin-yang malevolent spirit was hit by the crimson dragon flash. His figure was drowned in the fire. At the critical moment, he held the yin-yang dual blades and waved them, creating a blood-red shield above his head. Crimson Dragon Flash slammed into the bloodlight shield and sent the yin-yang twin blades flying. However, the power of the Crimson Dragon Flash was also reduced by more than half. The yin-yang malevolent spirit took the opportunity to retreat and avoid the Crimson Dragon Flash. He retreated to a pile of rocks 30 meters away. The Crimson Dragon Flash created a huge ravine in the grassland that was full of rocks. Gravel and dust burst into the air, and flames soared into the sky. The yin-yang malevolent spirit took the opportunity to pick up the yin-yang dual blades and held them tightly in his hands. He stood among the rocks and looked up at Ji Tianxing in the night sky. His eyes flashed with intense hatred and murderous intent. Damn little reptile. He's too arrogant. He has a magic artifact that can fly, but he didn't run away. Instead, he stayed to fight me. It seems that this little bastard wants to kill me. He actually wants to kill me. In the eyes of the yin-yang malevolent spirit, Ji Tianxing was just a weak prey. He was the hunter who had victory in his hands. Now, not only was the prey struggling to fight back, but he was also trying to kill him, the hunter. This was undoubtedly an enormous mockery and humiliation to him. The yin-yang malevolent spirit's heart was filled with murderous intent, and blood-red flames rose from his body. At this moment, Ji Tianxing stood in the night sky again and used the flying star sword technique. He released a sword aura that could split the sky and earth and slashed down fiercely. Water split. The 20-meter-long golden sword aura, with the power to destroy everything, slashed the mountain peak with a loud bang. The yin-yang malevolent spirit did not resist. He quickly turned into a dark demonic fog and fled as fast as the wind. Boom! In the deafening sound, a huge ravine about 100 meters long was cut open on the mountain peak. The open space near the cliff was cut open by the sword. It collapsed into countless mud and boulders that rolled down the cliff. The yin-yang malevolent spirit hid in the forest and stood on the treetop of a towering tree. He looked up at Ji Tianxing and shouted furiously, "Ji Tianxing, do you think that I can't do anything to you just because you can fly in the sky?" Chapter 420. Yin-yang Fiend was ordered to capture Ji Tianxing. He was originally full of confidence and was determined to succeed. However, after exchanging a few blows, he discovered that Ji Tianxing's combat strength was indeed extraordinary. Only now did he understand that it was no coincidence that Healenly had been killed by Ji Tianxing. He had no choice but to put away his contempt and go all out to deal with Ji Tianxing. Hell's devil vines! The yin-yang fiend spread his arms, and a bloody light gushed out from his body, scattering in the forest within 100 meters. Suddenly, the peak of the mountain shook violently, and countless towering trees in the forest trembled. The air was filled with surging demonic mist, filled with an extremely cold aura of death. In the next moment, in the forest within a radius of 100 meters, 6 pitch-black pillars suddenly emerged from the ground, rushing hundreds of meters into the night sky. Swish! Swish! The 6 pitch-black pillars exuded billowing devil chi and split into tens of thousands of black vines, waving wildly as they lunged towards Ji Tianxing and Qianyu. Each of the black vines was as thick as a human arm and hundreds of meters long. They were also covered with sharp barbs. This was the yin-yang malevolence's trump card, Hell's demonic vine. In the blink of an eye, thousands of black vines interweaved into a huge net that covered the sky above the mountain peak. Ji Tianxing and Qianyu had no time to escape, and were immediately enveloped by the Hell's devil vines. Countless Hell's devil vines crazily twisted and shuttled back and forth, wrapping around the two of them. Ji Tianxing hurriedly activated his sword qi, desperately trying to kill the Hell's devil vines around him. However, those Hell's demonic vines were incomparably tough, and couldn't be cut off in a short period of time. Just as he was trying his best to counterattack, countless demonic vines pounced over and quickly wrapped around his limbs and body, wrapping him up like a huge dumpling. Qianyu struggled with all his might, but he was unable to break free from the Hell's demonic vines. In the blink of an eye, he was bound tightly. The Hell's devil vines released a great power and wrapped around Ji Tianxing and Qianyu, twisting their bodies and making their bones creak. The thorns on the demonic vines also pierced deeply into their flesh, madly devouring their blood and true yuan. Ji Tianxing and Qianyu's blood qi and true essence were rapidly draining away, and their strength was also rapidly weakening. At this moment, Yin-Yang Fiend bellowed with murderous intent, "Get down here and die!" Tens of thousands of Hell's devil vines immediately pulled Ji Tianxing and Qianyu down from the sky and slammed them onto the mountain peak. Plop! Plop! Ji Tianxing and Qianyu crashed into the forest, creating a huge crater in the ground. Dust and wood chips flew everywhere. Both of them were wrapped up by the demonic vines, lying in the large pit, unable to move. Yin-Yang Fiend walked to the edge of the pit and looked down at Ji Tianxing, sneering contemptuously. "Ha ha ha! Ji Tianxing, I've already said that it's useless to resist. With your insignificant strength, you're no match for me. Accept your fate." Ji Tianxing's entire body was wrapped up by the demonic vines. Only his eyes were exposed, but he still did not resist or struggle. His clear eyes were filled with determination and unyielding, and his gaze was still cold and indifferent. Suddenly, he activated the sword embryo in his body with all his might, exploding with his strongest skill. Boom! His entire body lit up with a dazzling golden light, illuminating the dark night sky. The Hell's demonic vines wrapped around his body were broken by the impact of the golden light, and they were sent flying away. The sword embryo in his abdomen flew out and turned into a 10-meter-long, dazzling golden sword, bursting with sword will. Swish! 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 The golden sword slashed out 360 times in an instant, immediately destroying all the Hell's devil vines around him. Ji Tianxing broke away from the Hell's devil vines and jumped out of the huge pit. Seeing this, the Yin Yang Sha's face was filled with disbelief. He could not help but exclaim, How is this possible? I spent 10 years of effort and skill to nurture the Hell's Devil vines. How could he break free so easily? In order to nurture the Hell's Devil vines, he had spent 10 years of hard work and a large amount of blood essence. He could not believe that Ji Tianqing could break the Hell's Devil vines with his strength. At this moment, Ji Tianqing looked at him coldly and shouted, "Yin Yang Sha, if this is all you've got, you can die now." As soon as he finished speaking, a golden sword appeared in the night sky above the Yin Yang Sha's head. It emitted a dazzling golden light, and a sword that could tear apart heaven and earth. Without a doubt, this sword was Ji Tianqing's sword embryo. Die! Ji Tianqing shouted coldly and controlled the golden sword. Along with the torrential golden flame, it exploded with destructive power and descended from the sky to assassinate the Yin Yang Sha. At that moment, the golden light tore apart the dark night sky and illuminated dozens of miles of the night sky. The Yin Yang Sha looked up at the giant sword, and his expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with fear. The terrifying sword will and power of the giant sword suppressed the area within 100 meters, making it difficult for him to move. He could not escape at all. In the face of the giant sword's attack, escaping was an extravagant hope. He could only fight to the death. Yin Yang Wheel. The Yin Yang Sha unleashed his survival potential and used up 3 years of hard work. He spat out 3 streams of purple blood essence and waved his yin yang blades wildly. A black and white disc formed above his head. The huge disc with a radius of 10 meters was half black and half white. It merged and circulated in harmony, containing the mysteries of the Tao of Yin and Yang. Bang! Amidst a deafening explosion, the giant golden sword that descended from the sky viciously stabbed into the Yin Yang Wheel. Instantly, the Yin Yang Wheel was smashed into pieces. The Yin Yang blades were also distorted and broken by the giant sword. The Yin Yang Sha's figure was instantly engulfed by the golden sword. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion erupted. The golden sword crashed into the ground of the mountain peak. Instantly, golden flames covered the sky and covered a radius of 1,000 meters. A huge crater with a radius of 100 meters was blasted into the ground. The forest within 1,000 meters was shredded into pieces by the golden sword chi and turned into ruins. The entire mountain peak trembled and swayed, and a few wide ravines appeared. After a long while, the dazzling golden light finally dissipated. The earth-shattering commotion gradually stopped. The golden sword shrank back into a sword embryo and flew back into Ji Tianqing's body. He stood on the ruins and looked at the huge crater in front of him. The Yin Yang Sha was lying at the bottom of the crater, covered in blood. Half of his body was buried by dust and rubble. The Yin Yang Wheel had helped him block most of the power of the giant sword, so he was lucky to survive. However, he was also heavily injured. A few cracks had appeared on his body, revealing his white bones and internal organs. One of his arms and one of his legs had also disappeared. No matter how strong a demon's physique was, he was already at the end of his tether with such heavy injuries. His strength was extremely weak. The Yin Yang Sha struggled to crawl out of the ruins. Covered in blood, he looked up at Ji Tianqing and shouted in a venomous tone, "Ji Tianqing, you bastard! Bastard! You are only at the 3rd level of Essence Core. How can you defeat me? I don't believe it. I will definitely not lose to you." The Yin Yang Sha was clearly unable to accept this result. He was furious and indignant. His entire being was in a frenzy. Ji Tianqing stood at the edge of the crater and looked down at the Yin Yang Sha. His voice was cold as he said, "Yin Yang Sha, you are indeed very strong. To be able to take a blow from my trump card and not die. However, no matter how strong you are not as strong as me. When you attacked me, you were destined to die." As he spoke, he slowly raised his left hand. Red flames began to accumulate in his palm. His entire left arm turned red as if molten lava. It was filled with a violent beauty and contained the power to destroy everything. Brothers, if you haven't voted yet, remember to vote. Please. Chapter 421. Burning Sky Palm. Ji Tianqing shouted coldly. He stretched out his red left palm and slapped the Yin Yang fiend at the bottom of the crater. Suddenly, A giant flaming palm appeared in the night sky, covering the sky and illuminating a radius of 10 miles. The giant flaming palm fell from the sky, carrying an invincible and violent power. It fell from the sky and blasted the Yin-Yang Fiend. The Yin-Yang Fiend was already seriously injured. Suppressed by the terrifying power of the burning sky palm, it could only lie limply in the ruins, waiting for death with a heart full of despair. Ji Tianxing, even if I die, you won't live for long. The Demon King will tear you to pieces. Before dying, the Yin-Yang Fiend used the last of its strength and roared hysterically. In the next moment, the giant flaming palm that covered the sky slammed into the Yin-Yang Fiend, drowning his body. Boom! In a deafening explosion, the mountain peak was instantly turned into a sea of fire. The overwhelming scarlet flame true fire illuminated the night sky within a radius of dozens of miles, turning it red. The dense forest on the mountain peak was burned to ashes by the sea of fire in the blink of an eye. Countless towering trees were turned into charcoal. The deep crater was blasted into pieces by the burning sky palm. Dense and wide gullies spread out in all directions. The entire mountain shook violently, making a loud rumbling sound. It was on the verge of collapse. As countless cracks spread out, the thousands of feet tall mountain was torn apart by the sea of fire. It became fragmented and finally collapsed. Endless soil and rocks mixed together and poured down the cliffs and valleys around the mountain peak, stirring up smoke and dust that covered the sky. The deafening explosion reverberated between the mountains for a long time. The dazzling red flames rose in the night sky for a long time, before gradually extinguishing. 100 breaths passed, and everything returned to normal. The originally lush thousands of feet tall mountain had become scorched ruins hundreds of meters high. Black smoke rose everywhere. The power of the burning sky palm was so terrifying that even the entire mountain was blasted into ruins. The Yin-Yang Fiend, who was seriously injured, naturally turned into ashes and completely disappeared. Ji Tianxing rode on Qianyu and left the scorched earth. He quickly disappeared into the night sky and flew towards the southwest. The next morning, Qianyu flew for 2,000 miles before stopping. Ji Tianxing let it land on a towering mountain. He took out a map and carefully compared the surrounding terrain. Soon, he confirmed that he was not in the wrong place. This was indeed the Beast King Valley. Around the towering mountain, there were endless mountains. They were connected head to tail, rising and falling one after another, extending into the horizon. Between the mountains, there were many deep valleys that were shrouded in thick clouds and mist. Ji Tianxing knew that the southwest region of the ancient realm was filled with tall mountains and deep valleys. There were countless ferocious demon beasts, as well as all sorts of poisonous insects, snakes, and ants. Many of the seemingly empty and quiet valleys were actually hiding great dangers. Even the dense fog above the valley was a highly toxic miasma. Those who did not know could easily be poisoned to death. This area was deserted. Even the disciples of the 8 great sects rarely came here when they went out to gain experience. He stood at the top of the mountain and looked around. Soon he determined the direction. He looked at the deep valley in the shape of a gourd and covered in white mist. He muttered in a low voice, "It looks like that valley is the Beast King Valley. Qianyu, let's go." He rode Qianyu down the mountain and landed on the grass at the entrance of the Beast King Valley. In the dense grass, there were all kinds of colorful flowers and plants, emitting a complex and rich fragrance. Ji Tianxing recognized them at a glance. Those seemingly delicate flowers and plants all contained various kinds of poison. When the fragrance of several flowers and plants mixed together, it could produce a strong poison that could easily kill some high-level demon beasts. Only Yuan Dan stage demon beasts could use their profound skills to resist the corrosion of the poison. "Qianyu, be careful." Ji Tianxing used his spiritual sense to warn Qianyu. Then, he held his breath and walked towards the entrance of the valley. The entrance of the valley was a little narrow. It was only 10 meters wide, and there were cliffs on both sides. The entrance was shrouded in white mist, and one could only see the grass within 10 meters. It was impossible to see the situation inside the valley. Although the entrance of the valley seemed to be formed naturally, there were no decorations or buildings. However, Ji Tianxing was a Formation Dao Grandmaster. Naturally, He could see that the entire Beast King Valley was enveloped by a heavenly origin formation and was very safe. The entrance of the valley was protected by an invisible formation. If one rashly barged in, they would be imprisoned or killed by the formation. Although Ji Tianxing was confident that he could break the formation, he was here to visit the Beast King Valley. However, he was here to visit the Beast King, so he naturally couldn't force his way in. He stood at the entrance of the valley and cupped his hands toward the valley. He said in a loud voice, "I'm Ji Tianxing, a disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. I'm here to visit Senior Beast King, under the orders of my master." He used his vigorous skills to shout this sentence. His voice spread into the valley and reverberated in the valley. Suddenly, several high-pitched beast roars sounded in the valley from afar. Ji Tianxing stood at the entrance and waited patiently. After about 100 breaths of time, muffled footsteps could be heard from the valley. Ji Tianxing looked over and saw a 6-armed white ape that was about 3 meters tall and covered in snow-white hair. It walked out of the thick white mist and came to the entrance of the valley. The 6-armed white ape was obviously a spirit beast with high intelligence. It did not have the slightest violent aura of a monster beast. Its body emitted a heavy feeling that was as stable as a boulder. Its feet stepped on the grass, and a black iron chain was wrapped around its thick and sturdy waist. It also carried 2 black domineering sabers that were as wide as benches on its shoulders. The 6-armed white ape's attire, movements, and eyes were very similar to a human's. It walked to Ji Tianxing and stood 5 steps away. It sized up Ji Tianxing and said, "Young man, please show me your Sky Pillar sect disciple token." Seeing that it could speak, Ji Tianxing was sure that it was an origin core spirit beast. It must have been taught and educated by the Beast King. He nodded and took out the Sky Pillar token and handed it to the white ape. The white ape stretched out its wide palm and took the Sky Pillar token. After observing it for a moment, it returned the token to Ji Tianxing. Then, it waved its palm and released a few rays of white light, which hit a mysterious pattern carved on the left side of the cliff. The mysterious pattern revolved and changed, activating the defensive formation at the entrance of the valley. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, the invisible barrier at the entrance of the valley disappeared. The white ape nodded at Ji Tianxing and said, "Young man, please follow me." Then, it led Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu into the valley and entered the thick white mist. After passing through the layers of white mist, Ji Tianxing saw the scenery in front of him suddenly open up. The valley was filled with lush grass and flowers of various colors in full bloom. There was also a forest of fruit trees. The treetops were full of colorful and fragrant spirit fruits. There were all kinds of spirit beasts playing in the grass and trees, or flying in the sky. There were all kinds of spirit beasts. There were spirit birds flying in the sky, spirit beasts running on the ground, and even fish and prawns living in the ponds. When Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu followed the white ape and passed by a spirit fruit orchard, they saw a few spirit monkeys with bamboo baskets, picking fruits from the treetops. They looked at Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu curiously. They gathered their courage and surrounded them, chattering away. "Hey, is someone here to visit the Valley Master? Look at that guy. He looks like a disciple of an orthodox sect. Grandpa White Ape, where did this guest come from? He won't ask the Valley Master for spirit beasts, right? We work very hard. We don't want to be taken away." The voices of the few spirit monkeys were crisp and pleasant. They were like 6 or 7 years old human children, and they were very cute. Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu were curious and couldn't help but look at them a few more times. The white ape turned to look at the few spirit monkeys and pursed his lips, deliberately trying to scare them. "If you like to watch the fun, I'll ask the Valley Master to give you to this guest." The few spirit monkeys suddenly showed fear. They shook their heads and retreated, pleading with the white ape. "I don't. Grandpa White Ape, you love us the most. How can we bear to leave you? Grandpa White Ape, we're the most obedient. We don't like to watch the fun, we don't talk about other spirit beasts, and we won't steal spirit fruits." "See, shut up. You've exposed everything that we've been doing." "Huh? Did I? I'm clearly saying the opposite." "Sigh. Forget it, just shut up, I beg you." Hearing the conversation between the few little spirit monkeys, Ji Tianxing felt that it was novel and interesting. But he also felt that it was very funny. This Beast King Valley sounds like a dignified and dangerous place, but I didn't expect it to be a paradise for spirit beasts. The mysterious Beast King Valley Master can actually rear such a variety of spirit beasts. I wonder how mysterious his methods are. Brothers, why don't you give me a round of tips? Chapter 422. Ji Tianxing was somewhat curious and expectant about the mysterious Beast King Valley Master. Under White Ape's lead, he and Qianyu passed through the deep valley and arrived at the depths of the Beast King Valley. In front of them was an open valley with a radius of several thousand meters. There were many towering trees in the valley and several nurseries for planting spirit herbs. Under several towering trees, there was an exquisite and elegant two-story building made of green wood. Not far behind the building was the deepest part of the valley, which was blocked on three sides by 1,000-meter-high cliffs. A 1,000-meter-high silver waterfall hung down from the cliff, pouring clear spring water into a pool in the depths of the valley. The muffled sound of water reverberated leisurely in the valley. The blue sky and green forests, the sound of birds and the fragrance of flowers, as well as the scene of the silver waterfall, made the Beast King Valley seem like a paradise, fresh and pleasant. White Ape led Ji Tianxing and Qianyu through the grassland and several towering trees, heading straight for the silver waterfall. When they got closer, Ji Tianxing saw that there was a pavilion built of green stone beside the pool under the waterfall. In the simple and elegant pavilion, there was a stone table and several stone stools. There were 3 items on the stone table: a jade-toothed zither with tassels, an incense burner emitting spirals of green smoke, and an antique sandalwood teapot. A tall and thin old man in a white robe was sitting on the stone stool, elegantly waving his arms and plucking the strings of the zither with his 10 fingers. Although he was facing the waterfall, his back was facing Ji Tianxing, so Ji Tianxing couldn't see his appearance clearly. However, his leisurely back view, as well as his soothing and light zither music, made Ji Tianxing very certain that this person was definitely an elegant person who cultivated his body and mind. White Ape took the lead and walked into the pavilion, respectfully reporting to the white-robed old man. Ji Tianxing stood outside the pavilion, cupped his hands and bowed to the white-robed old man. His tone was solemn as he said, "Sky Pillar Sect's disciple Ji Tianxing is here to pay a visit to Senior Beast King on the orders of the sect master." The white-robed old man was the master of the Beast King Valley. When he heard Ji Tianxing's voice, he slowly withdrew his hands from the zither. The sound of the zither stopped, and the white-robed old man said indifferently, "Chu Tianxing's direct disciple? Come here." The old man's voice was calm and contained a trace of majesty. Ji Tianxing stepped into the pavilion and stood in front of the old man. Only now did Chen-Shi see clearly that the old man had a thin face with firm features, and his expression carried an otherworldly bearing. Just as he had guessed, this Beast King Valley Master was a real expert, an elegant man. After Ji Tianxing cupped his hands in greeting, he took out a square black iron box from his space ring and handed it to the Beast King Valley Master. "Senior Beast King, this junior has been ordered by my master to deliver this. Please accept it." "Oh, what kind of gift would Chu Tianxing give to this old man?" The Beast King raised his eyebrows and showed a kind smile as he reached out to receive the black iron box. Ji Tianxing replied truthfully, "This junior does not know. Senior will naturally know when you open the box." The Beast King nodded slightly and was about to open the array seal on the black iron box. Qianyu had been standing behind Ji Tianxing the whole time, staring at the Beast King with a strange expression. Seeing its strange expression, Ji Tianxing used his spiritual sense to ask, "Qianyu, what's wrong?" Qianyu turned a deaf ear to his words, and after pondering for a moment, it seemed to have finally determined something. Swish! Its figure flashed and rushed to the side of the stone table. Its eyes stared straight at the Beast King. Its eyes were filled with anger, and its body trembled in agitation. "So it's you, you stinking old man!" Qianyu shouted angrily, immediately stunning Ji Tianxing and the Beast King. White Ape's eyes darkened, and he looked at Qianyu warily. Qianyu turned a blind eye to everyone's reaction and glared at the Beast King, cursing angrily. Damn stinking old man. I've finally found you. Although it's been 100 years, I'll remember you forever. It's you who trapped me in the Xianbing cave in the Taiyi Mountains, and caused me to be imprisoned for 100 years. Hearing Qianyu's words, Ji Tianxing and the Beast King's expressions changed. Ji Tianxing suddenly recalled something. Qianyu had once said that a mysterious expert had taken it to the Taiyi mountain range and imprisoned it in the profound ice cave. It had been sealed by a grand formation for 100 years. 100 years was almost up, and that mysterious powerhouse was likely to come back to find it. Now he finally understood that the mysterious powerhouse that Qianyu had mentioned was most likely the Beast King. Sure enough, the Beast King was stunned for a moment. After seeing Qianyu's appearance, a look of surprise appeared on its face. You're that little ice fox. I built the Xianbing cave and set up a great array. How could you have broken the seal? Qianyu sneered with resentment. Humph. It seems that you still remember this incident and admit to your crimes? If I hadn't met old Ji, I would still be trapped in the Xianbing cave, and would never be able to see the light of day again. You damn stinking old man. You've imprisoned me for 100 years. I'll kill you. With a furious roar, Qianyu opened its mouth and spat out a ball of icy blue light. It waved its claws and shot out a dozen icy blue light blades towards the Beast King. White Ape's eyes narrowed, and he pulled out the twin swords on his back to block Qianyu's attack. White Ape, stand down. The Beast King was still sitting on the stone bench, and shouted with a straight face. Looking at the icy blue light and sharp blades coming towards him, he calmly raised his right hand, and waved his sleeve. Swoosh! A mysterious and vast silver light flashed by, blocking the icy blue light and the sharp blade, and swallowing them all. Qianyu was enraged, and was about to attack again. The Beast King stretched out his right hand, and flicked his finger. A silver light shot out, and hit 3 spots on Qianyu's body. Bam! 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 After 3 muffled sounds, Qianyu's cultivation was sealed. Like a deflated balloon, his body fell limply to the ground. Senior Beast King, please have mercy on it. Ji Tianxing was anxious and worried. He quickly stood in front of Qianyu to check on it. Seeing that it was only sealed and was not hurt, he breathed a sigh of relief. Although Qianyu's power was sealed, it could still speak. It glared at the Beast King and shouted angrily. Stinking old man. Old Ji saved me, and I've recognized him as my master. I'll follow him for the rest of my life. So what if you're strong? I hate you. Don't ever think of making me your spiritual pet. The higher the level of a spiritual beast, the more intelligent and spiritual it was. Once it recognized its master, it would never change its mind. Even if the Beast King was a divine prime elite, he would never take Qianyu as his spiritual pet. It would be useless even if he killed it. The Beast King glanced at Qianyu, and then looked at Ji Tianxing. He immediately guessed the reason. Chapter 423. Peace was restored in the pavilion. Ji Tianxing looked at the Beast King and asked in a serious tone. Senior Beast King, what happened between you and Qianyu? The Beast King waved his hand and dismissed White Ape. After White Ape left, he set up a light barrier to cover him and Ji Tianxing. This light barrier could isolate sound. Qianyu was outside the barrier, and could not hear the conversation between the Beast King and Ji Tianxing. After setting up the sound barrier, the Beast King said slowly, I don't know what method you used to break the formation in the Xianbing cave and save the little fox. However, since you were accepted as Chu Tianxing's disciple, you must have the corresponding talent. The little fox is willing to recognize you as its master. This can be considered fate and good fortune between the two of you. It's a long story about the little fox. I have to start from 100 years ago. He paused and raised his eyebrows at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing cupped his hands and said, Senior, please tell me the details. I'm all ears. The Beast King's eyes revealed a look of reminiscence. He said in a low voice, Back then, I went to the Yong'an region to do something. On the way back, I found the little fox in a mountain stream. At that time, it was very young and could not remember anything. It was on its last breath. I took it away from the danger zone. After careful examination, I found that it was the legendary Heavenly Fox. Heavenly Fox? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. The Beast King nodded and explained. The Heavenly Fox is the most noble and powerful race among the spirit beasts. It was born with a noble bloodline and was arrogant. In the ancient legends, the Heavenly Fox was almost on par with the divine dragon and the fire phoenix. Being able to obtain a Heavenly Fox was naturally a pleasant surprise. I was amazed by the heavens. However, this little Heavenly Fox was unwilling to recognize me as its master. It was unusually arrogant. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "So, Senior, you left it in the Taiyi Mountains?" The Beast King nodded slightly and said, "The Heavenly Fox should only exist in legends. It has not appeared in the human world for the past 200 years. It is very mysterious. If the appearance of this little Heavenly Fox is known to the world, it will definitely cause a fight among the various factions and experts. It's not fated to be with this old man, and it's too young and weak. I couldn't bear to see it die prematurely, so I could only leave it in the remote and desolate Taiyi mountain range. This old man built in Xianbing Cave and set up a great formation to protect it, allowing it to grow and cultivate safely. Originally, this old man calculated the time and waited for it to cultivate for 100 years before releasing it and letting it choose its own direction and future. I just didn't expect that this little Heavenly Fox would be fated with you, and actually left the Xianbing Cave in advance." After listening to the Beast King's explanation, Ji Tianqing finally understood the twists and turns and asked, "Senior, do you know where I can find the Heavenly Fox clan?" "The Heavenly Fox clan is too mysterious. This old man has studied them for nearly 100 years, but I can't find any trace of them." The Beast King shook his head and sighed. Then, he said in a serious tone, "When this old man picked up this little Heavenly Fox, I found a string of beads on it. Perhaps it has something to do with its origin." Speaking of this, he took out a string of ice blue necklace from his wide sleeve. This string of beads was pierced with 19 ice blue gems, and hanging from it was a diamond-shaped purple crystal pendant with mysterious lines and words engraved on it. At first glance, this string of beads was very bright and dazzling, exuding a gorgeous and dignified aura. Staring at the string of beads carefully, one would find that the string of beads contained a very noble and sacred aura, as well as a simple and ancient charm. If one stared at the purple crystal pendant for too long, one's whole mind would be sucked in. The Beast King handed the ice blue necklace to Ji Tianqing and said in a serious tone, "This old man has spent many years looking up countless ancient books and information to find out that the pattern and words on this string of beads are in the language of the Heavenly Fox clan. Judging from this string of beads, this little Heavenly Fox should be a noble among the Heavenly Foxes. Its bloodline is far nobler and more sacred than that of ordinary Heavenly Foxes. This old man speculates that something must have happened to the mysterious Heavenly Fox clan to let such a noble descendant wander the world." Ji Tianqing took the ice blue necklace and said with a serious face, "Thank you for telling me, Senior. I will remember it." After talking about Qian Yu's origin, the Beast King did not say anything more. He waved his hand and removed the soundproof light shield. He cast a spell to unlock the array of the black iron box. After opening the box, he saw a letter and a space ring in the box. The Beast King opened the envelope and took out the letter to read carefully. After reading the contents of the letter, his eyes flashed and his face changed slightly, but soon returned to normal. He put the letter away and said to Ji Tianqing in a serious tone, "Nephew Tianqing, please go back and tell Master Chu that this old man will keep the appointment." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and said, "In that case, I will take my leave." The Beast King nodded slightly and ordered White Ape outside the pavilion. "White Ape, see the guest out." After saying that, he waved his hand and released a silver light to unlock the seal on Qian Yu's body. Qian Yu's power was unsealed, and he immediately regained his freedom of movement. It glared at the Beast King with anger still lingering in its eyes. Only then did it follow Ji Tian out of the pavilion and walked out of the valley. White Ape saw them out of the Beast King Valley and stopped at the entrance of the valley. Ji Tianxing rode Qianyu into the sky and soon left the Beast King Valley. After a quarter of an hour, the two of them were far away from the Beast King Valley. When they were flying high in the sky, Qianyu couldn't help but ask, "Old Ji, what did that stinky old man say to you just now?" Ji Tianxing said calmly, "The Beast King told me about your origin and life experience. He said that you are a noble heavenly fox." Qianyu raised his eyebrows and said proudly, "Of course. I am a noble heavenly fox. Of course my bloodline is sacred and noble." Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and asked, "Since you already know that you are a heavenly fox, do you still remember your relatives and where the territory of the heavenly fox clan is?" Qianyu showed a confused look and shook his head. "I don't remember. I don't have any impression at all." Ji Tianxing patted him on the back and comforted him. "Don't worry. I will help you find your clansmen in the future. By the way, the Beast King also gave me a pearl necklace. That is what you wore when you were young." After that, he took out the ice blue pearl necklace with an amethyst pendant. "That pearl necklace is mine?" Qianyu immediately turned his head and looked back, desperately twisting his neck to observe the pearl necklace. When Ji Tianxing and the Beast King were talking, he only saw the Beast King take out a pearl necklace, but he couldn't hear the conversation between the two. Now he knew that the pearl necklace was his. He said angrily, "That hateful stinky old man. How dare he take my things? Humph, if we hadn't come to find him today, he wouldn't have been so kind as to give it back to me." Ji Tianxing chuckled and said, "Although the Beast King trapped you in the Xianbing cave for hundreds of years, he saved your life after all. So, his saving your life is offset by your hatred for him. You don't have to hate him anymore." After that, he injected Jinqi into the pearl necklace, making it countless times bigger. With a wave of his hand, he put the pearl necklace around Qianyu's neck. The pearl necklace lit up with a brilliant ice blue brilliance and immediately shrank, tightly attaching itself to Qianyu's neck. Qianyu twisted his neck a few times and didn't feel any discomfort. Instead, he felt very comfortable and comfortable. He felt a strong sense of familiarity with the pearl necklace. Chapter 424. Ji Tianxing rode on Qianyu and flew back to the Sky Pillar sect at lightning speed. At noon, Qianyu flew for 4 hours and flew thousands of miles away. At this time, the sun was shining brightly in the sky, and the sky was blue. Qianyu was flying between the mountains and above a huge canyon. Suddenly, a huge red cloud appeared in the sky in front of them and was flying towards them. When Qianyu saw the red cloud, he immediately said, "Old Ji, look, there's a huge cloud in front of us." Ji Tianxing looked up and carefully observed for a moment before saying, "No, that's not a cloud. There's a sound wave coming from it." When the two sides got closer, Ji Tianxing saw that it was a dense blood light that was 1,000 meters in radius. The blood light emitted a strong demonic aura that contained an incomparably violent power. Swoosh! The huge blood light accelerated and rushed over, and in the blink of an eye, it was 1,000 meters in front of Ji Tianxing. At this time, the blood light that blotted out the sky suddenly shattered and split into thousands of dark red blood lights. The thousands of blood lights turned into 3-meter-long, ferocious-looking demon crows. The demon crows flapped their wings and shot over like sharp arrows. Caw, caw, caw. At least 3,000 demon crows let out ear-piercing screeches and attacked Ji Tianxing and Qianyu with sound waves. Ji Tianxing's face was pale from the shock, and his consciousness was dizzy. He hurriedly sealed his hearing to block the sound wave attack. Qianyu's body was also trembling from the shock, and he revealed a painful expression. The demon crows that blotted out the sky spread out and completely sealed off the canyon, forming a huge net with a radius of 10 miles. Countless demon crows rushed towards Ji Tianxing and Qianyu, launching a fierce attack. Ji Tianxing hurriedly took out the black dragon sword and used the Kenshin battle robe to form a pair of wings. He flew into the sky and unsheathed his sword with a clang. Dragon soars from the 9 heavens. Swoosh! The moment the black dragon sword was unsheathed, it slashed out a 10-meter-long, dazzling divine dragon phantom that charged towards the hundreds of blood ravens ahead. With a muffled boom, the hundreds of blood ravens were sliced into pieces by the godly dragon's sword. However, the shards of bloody light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth quickly gathered together and condensed into bloody crows that once again charged towards Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was besieged by thousands of blood ravens, and he was immediately trapped in a bloody light that filled the sky. His figure was faintly discernible, and it was difficult for him to break free. Qian Yu's situation was almost the same. She was also surrounded by thousands of blood ravens and had to endure endless attacks. It struggled with all its might, releasing ice-blue light blades that blotted out the sky and covered the earth, continuously killing one blood raven after another. However, those blood ravens were unkillable. Even if they were shattered, they could still reform. After resisting and fighting for a while, it was instead riddled with wounds by the numerous blood ravens. At the same time, a huge demonic crow formed by bloody light quietly flew into the canyon. On the back of this huge demonic crow stood a 1-meter-tall demon boy wearing a black robe. His eyes flickered with a dazzling purple light. He was waving his 10 fingers, constantly forming mysterious demon Dao seals. Boom! Endless bloody light gushed out of his body and poured down into the deep canyon below. In the blink of an eye, the deep canyon with a radius of 10 miles was filled with bloody light, turning into a sea of blood. Dense forests grew in the canyon, with countless towering trees and many ferocious demon beasts. Under the cover of the bloody light, the dense forests and towering trees were immediately corroded into ashes and scattered in the sea of blood. Many ferocious demon beasts could not escape in time. They were corroded into white bones and blood by the bloody light, and merged into the sea of blood. The little boy formed a seal with both hands. After waving it thousands of times, he finally formed a seal. Blood Sea Seal Sky Seal. With a furious roar, he slowly raised his hands upwards. The entire sea of blood immediately boiled. Amidst the loud rumbling, an endless amount of blood-red light rushed into the sky, condensing into a thick blood-red light wall. In just 2 short breaths, the wall of bloody light extended and sealed the entire canyon and 10 miles of sky. The heaven and earth with a radius of 10 miles suddenly turned into a sea of blood. It was as if the world was only left with the color of blood. The thousands of bloody crows high in the sky also turned into bloody light and merged into the bloody light wall that sealed the heaven and earth. All the demonic crows dissipated. Ji Tianxing and Qian Yu were able to escape and quickly gathered together. Ji Tianxing was wearing the Kenshin battle robe and the heavenly origin star armor. He did not look embarrassed or injured. Qian Yu, on the other hand, was riddled with wounds. Blood kept gushing out of them. Seeing that it was heavily injured, Ji Tianxing transmitted his voice to it. Qian Yu, you go into the 100 treasures brocade pouch to hide. I will deal with the remaining demons. No, Qian Yu firmly refused. Old Ji, I want to fight side by side with you. Ji Tianxing frowned and said in a deep voice. Qian Yu, I have the battle robe and armor to protect me. You don't have to worry about me. But Qian Yu still wanted to argue. It was not willing to let him fight alone and bear the danger. Ji Tianxing shouted, stop talking nonsense. Go into the 100 treasures brocade pouch. Qian Yu could not dissuade him. It could only go into the 100 treasures brocade pouch to heal its wounds. In the sky that was dyed red with blood, only Ji Tianxing was left. He put away the black dragon sword and looked down at the sea of blood with sharp eyes. He saw a disc made of white bones floating in the sea of blood. It looked like a praying mat used for cultivation. On the white bone praying mat sat a demon boy about 6 or 7 years old. He was looking up at Ji Tianxing with purple eyes. The boy's lips curled into a wicked and cold smile that did not match his age. Ji Tianxing, we all underestimated you. We actually let you kill Huluan Lai and the Yinyang Fiend. This is an enormous disgrace to our race. However, since this god has already made his move, you will not be able to escape. This god's blood sea heaven sealing seal has already been formed. This god is the ruler of this world. You obediently surrender. Ji Tianxing stared at him and couldn't help but furrow his brows. His eyes flashed with a thick sense of astonishment. A little boy from the clan? Such a terrifyingly powerful seal was actually formed by a child. He could not believe his eyes. He even thought that he was hallucinating. Who are you? Which lackey of the Blood Demon King? Haha, the demon boy sneered. There's no harm in telling you. In any case, you're already a turtle in a jar. This god is the #1 demon general of the Blood Demon tribe, Lord Ghost Eye. Hearing Ghost Eye's words, Ji Tianqing immediately understood. This Ghost Eye, who looked like a child, had likely cultivated some secret art of the demon Tao to become like this. Chapter 425. Ji Tianqing had read many history books and biographies in the past, and his senior had once said something that was still fresh in his mind. The pugilistic world is filled with danger, and only ugly women and children are not to be provoked. He was deeply moved by this saying. Although Ghost Eye looked like a weak child of 6 or 7 years old, he was a demon with terrifying strength that was impossible to defend against. Ji Tianqing coldly stared at Ghost Eye and shouted, Ghost Eye! When Huluan Lai and the Yin-Yang fiends came to kill me, they were just as arrogant as you. But in the end I killed them both. You will not be an exception. Ghost Eye immediately raised his eyebrows and revealed a sinister smile. Is that so? Since you are so confident, then this god will torture you so much that you will wish you were dead. With that, he extended his 10 fingers and formed a strange spell. His palms glowed with a bloody light, as he began to control the Blood Sea Heaven-Sealing Seal. Sky-severing sword. Following Gui Tong's shout, for towering waves of blood immediately surged out of the Blood Sea within a radius of 5 kilometers. The waves of blood condensed into 4 giant swords of bloody light that were 1,000 meters long and slashed at Ji Tianqing in the air. The 4 giant swords of bloody light attacked Ji Tianqing from 4 different directions, leaving him no place to hide. He could only use all his strength to resist. Moreover, the Heaven-Sealing Seal also released a powerful suppressive force that pressed down on Ji Tianqing like a mountain. He immediately found it difficult to move, and he plummeted from the sky toward the Blood Sea below. The next moment, the 4 giant swords of bloody light slashed at him, drowning his body. Bam! 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 A deafening muffled sound exploded, reverberating violently between heaven and earth. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing used the Kenshin battle robe to cover his body and used the powerful defense of the starry armor to block the attacks of the 4 giant swords of bloody light. The giant swords of bloody light were blocked, and they turned back into bloody waves and fell back into the Blood Sea. Ji Tianqing was unharmed and had blocked the suppressive force of the Heaven-Sealing Seal. He hovered several hundred meters in the air. He looked down at Gui Tong and shouted coldly, Gui Tong, die! He slowly stretched out his left arm that was as red as fire, and a monstrous flame surged out of his palm. Burning sky palm. He roared angrily and slammed his palm towards Gui Tong in the Blood Sea. Suddenly, a palace-sized flaming palm made of magma descended from the sky and blasted toward Ghost Eye. When Ghost Eye saw the giant flaming palm appear, and sensed the terrifying power it contained, he immediately revealed a mocking sneer. Hee, to be able to display such a powerful martial art, interesting. As he sneered, his figure dived into the sea of blood in a flash and disappeared. In the next moment, the gigantic palm that blotted out the sky smashed into the sea of blood. Boom! An earth-shattering boom erupted, reverberating fiercely between heaven and earth. It was so loud that even the deaf could hear it. The boundless sea of blood was blasted out by the burning sky palm, creating a huge whirlpool with a radius of 1,000 meters. It stirred up huge blood-colored waves that were 1,000 meters high, covering the sky. The blood-light barrier that was 10 miles in radius also shook violently, and dense cracks appeared on it. However, the blood sea surged violently for a while, then gradually calmed down. The burning sky palm had already dissipated, but Gui Tong's figure had yet to appear. Ji Tianqing's face immediately darkened, and his sharp eyes searched around for traces of Gui Tong. He did not expect that one of his trump cards, the burning sky palm, could not destroy the Blood Sea Heaven-Sealing mark. Gui Tong had disappeared, so he must not have been killed, and must be hiding somewhere. As expected, just as he was searching for Gui Tong appeared behind him out of thin air. Gui Tong was hiding 100 meters away, surrounded by a ball of blood-colored light, and was staring at his back with a sinister gaze. "Damned bastard. You almost destroyed my heaven-sealing imprint," he cursed in a low voice, and immediately formed a spell, waving his hands to control the heaven-sealing mark. "Demonic Dragon Slash." As Gui Tong shouted, the blood-colored light in the blood-light barrier in the sky condensed into 3 terrifying demonic dragons that were 1,000 meters long. Roar! The 3 blood-red demonic dragons let out bloodthirsty dragon roars and swooped down towards Ji Tianxing with bared fangs and brandished claws. Ji Tianxing immediately sensed that something was wrong. He turned his head and saw the 3 blood-red demonic dragons coming from different directions. The 3 demonic dragons were all condensed from blood-colored light, and they had neither intelligence nor fear. They came down with the power to destroy the world, and looked like they were going to perish together with him. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing did not have time to counterattack, and could only channel all his true essence and pour it into the Kenshin battle robe and starry armor to resist with all his might. Boom boom boom. In the deafening sound, Ji Tianxing's figure was drowned by the 3 blood-colored demonic dragons. The 3,000-meter-long demonic dragons collided with each other and exploded into monstrous waves of blood that fell into the boundless blood sea. The destructive shockwaves spread in all directions and hit the blood-light barrier hard. Ji Tianxing was smashed into the blood sea, and he floated in the monstrous blood sea, unable to break free. Fortunately, the Kenshin battle robe and starry armor blocked most of the impact for him. He was only dizzy from the impact, and his consciousness was a little blurry, but he was not hurt. Soon, he regained consciousness and escaped from the blood sea. He used the battle robe to form a pair of wings and flew into the sky. At this time, Ghost Eye was standing on the white bone futon above the blood sea and cursed with a pale face. "Damn bastard. He took such a powerful attack from me, and he is not hurt? The armor he is wearing must be of the heavenly prime grade, or it will not be able to protect him." After cursing for a while, Ghost Eye exuded a cold murderous intent and shouted, "If that is the case, it seems that I can only use that move." After saying that, he formed a seal with both hands and quickly drew an arc in the air, using a mysterious demonic secret technique. His blood-colored pupils also emitted a dazzling purple brilliance, which was reflected in the boundless blood sea. Suddenly, a huge purple array disk appeared in the blood sea. There were hundreds of mysterious and dazzling purple light pillars, and they formed a huge array disk, outlining a very mysterious and ancient pattern. The array disk slowly rotated, and a purple light shot up into the sky, covering the sky and earth. Ghost Eye stood in the sky, casting the spell in a dignified manner, and his tone was solemn as he chanted the spell. "Ghost Eye Demonic Eye, my divine power. With my blood establish a contract. Soul berries in the netherworld blood Shura." As he chanted the ancient and mysterious spell in the demonic language, the huge array disk accumulated a terrifying power, and a large cloud of blood mist gushed out. The boundless blood sea began to tremble, and huge waves were stirred up. The huge array disk surged with a bloody light, as if something huge was about to break out of the seal. In the next moment, a sharp claw the size of a room, covered in black scales, stretched out from the array disk. "Brothers, it is not that little he missed or made a mistake. It is that the website has been sealing up books on a large scale recently, and many people's books have had their chapters blocked. Our Sword Breaker, Chapter 384 has been blocked, which caused the chapters after that to be messed up. Little he is currently editing and waiting for the website to be unblocked. Please understand." Chapter 426. Ji Tianxing stood in the sky and looked down at the purple array disk in the sea of blood. He also saw the black and sharp claws that flickered with cold light. What the hell is this? His pupils constricted, and a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. He had a bad feeling. The monster that was about to crawl out of the array disk was very likely to be an extremely ferocious demonic creature. Thinking of this, he turned to look at Ghost Eye not far away. "I can't let him summon the demonic creature. Otherwise I'll be in danger." This thought flashed through Ji Tianxing's mind. Without hesitation, he activated the sword embryo, which flew out of his body and turned into a 10-meter-long golden sword. Ghost Eye die! He roared in a voice as loud as a bell. He activated the golden sword with all his might and charged toward Ghost Eye. Golden flames surrounded the sword, as if it had grown a pair of wings that blotted out the sky. Swoosh! The golden sword carried with it the power to destroy everything. It instantly pierced through the sky and slashed toward Ghost Eye. Ghost Eye's figure was swallowed by the golden sword. His expression changed drastically. He used a demonic technique and turned into a 100-meter-long wave of blood. Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, the huge golden sword slashed into the huge wave of blood. The gigantic wave was cut in half at the waist, bursting forth with monstrous waves that sprinkled into the sea of blood. The golden sword slashed into the boundless sea of blood again, creating a 1,000-meter-long ravine and splashing up huge waves. However, the wave of blood that Ghost Eye turned into disappeared into the blood sea. The golden sword's power was exhausted. It shrunk to the size of a palm and quickly flew back into Ji Tianxing's body. He had used up more than half of his power. His body was extremely weak, and his face was very pale. However, he did not succeed in stopping Ghost Eye. The purple array disk in the blood sea was still surging with demonic mist. That terrifyingly large claw had completely reached out of the array disk. A black arm that was dozens of meters long had also emerged. Immediately after, an incomparably large, ferocious, and terrifying evil demon's head emerged. Then another arm popped out from the ground. Within 10 breaths, a terrifying beast that was nearly 1,000 meters tall and completely black emerged from the formation plate. It was a demonic creature with 4 limbs and 2 pairs of black wings all over its body, covered in black scales. It looked like a giant bat, but its head was that of a ferocious demon with a sharp beak. A pair of huge feet stepped in the sea of blood, and the 6 toes were black and sharp claws. Its 4 arms were covered with sharp barbs, and its shoulders and spine were covered with sharp blades. There was also a scorpion-like tail behind its butt. This 1,000-meter-tall, ferocious demonic creature was the legendary Great Demon, the blood-soaked Azura. The bloody Azura stretched out his arms and looked up at Ji Tianxing in the sky. His huge scarlet eyes revealed an extremely bloodthirsty and sinister light. Kikik! The bloody Azura sneered sinisterly. He slowly stepped into the sky and approached Ji Tianxing. Its 4 sharp claws also stretched out, and a dark red blood light gushed out, accumulating the power to destroy heaven and earth. Ji Tianxing, you weak little reptile, you're actually able to force me to use my trump card. Even if you die, it's enough for you to be proud. The bloody Azura opened its wide mouth full of fangs and let out a low roar that was like thunder. Hearing its words, Ji Tianxing was stunned. His eyes stared at its forehead, and only then did he notice Ghost Eye's figure. It turned out that there was an eye-like pit on the bloody Azura's forehead, and it was protected by black scales. Ghost Eye was standing in that pit, controlling the bloody Azura that was as huge as a mountain. Ji Tianxing immediately frowned, and his eyes were filled with dense killing intent. He really wanted to use his strongest killing move and attack the bloody Azura's head, directly attacking Ghost Eye. However, he had just used the burning sky palm and the sword embryo, so he had already used up half of his power. Now he only had half of his power left, so he could only use the burning sky palm one last time. Thinking of this, he suddenly hesitated and had to seriously consider it. I can only use the burning sky palm one more time, and then my true essence will be exhausted. If I can kill or heavily injure him with one palm, maybe I can still escape. If this palm can't kill Ghost Eye, I will be extremely weak after using up all my true essence, and he can do whatever he wants to me. Just as he was hesitating, the bloody Azura had already flapped its wings and flew over, waving its 4 sharp claws that were shining with bloody light, and fiercely attacking. Swish, 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 swish. The incomparably huge sharp claws rushed over as fast as the aurora, sealing off the sky within a radius of 1,000 meters. Ji Tianxing didn't have time to think, and instinctively flapped his wings, desperately flying to dodge. However, even though he narrowly dodged several sharp claws, He was still sent flying by the bloody Azura's claw. Bang! With a muffled sound, Ji Tianxing was sent flying and fiercely smashed into the bloodlight barrier. Just as he struggled to fly back into the sky, the bloody Azura had already rushed over, wildly waving its 4 sharp claws again, and smashed him into the sea of blood. Bang! Ji Tianxing smashed into the sea of blood, splashing up huge waves. He struggled to fly out of the sea of blood, but just as he flew above the sea of blood, he was sent flying again by the bloody Azura's claws. Bang! Bang bang! Ji Tianxing had no chance to escape or resist, and was sent flying by the bloody Azura, unable to fight back. Although the Kenshin battle robe and starry armor had helped him block most of the power, and he only suffered some light injuries, but he needed to use a lot of true essence to activate the Kenshin battle robe and starry armor. As he was sent flying again and again, his true essence was quickly draining, and his body was getting weaker and weaker. Finally, when he was sent flying for the 5th time, he finally found a chance to fight back. Sky-burning palm. He burst out with the last of his strength, raised his fiery red left arm, and slapped toward the bloody Azura's forehead. A huge flaming palm that blotted out the sky appeared, and with a power that could destroy everything, it blasted toward the bloody Azura's forehead. However, the bloody Azura was already prepared, and he let out a mocking sneer. Ha ha ha. Little bastard, do you feel despair? Give up struggling and resisting. It's all futile. As he spoke, the bloody Azura stretched out 4 huge sharp claws, sending out a bloody light that blotted out the sky, and fiercely smashed toward the flaming palm. Bang! The bloody light that sealed the sky and earth collided with the flaming palm, and a loud explosion that shook the 9 heavens erupted. A shockwave that could destroy the heavens, and the earth erupted, instantly shattering the heaven-sealing seal. In that instant, the space within a radius of 10 miles was filled with boundless bloody light and flames, and became chaotic. When the sky-sealing mark shattered, the boundless sea of blood and the sky-burning palm dissipated. Ji Tianxing had also exhausted all his strength and fell from the sky. With a muffled bang, he fell onto the ruins of the canyon, struggling weakly and powerlessly. The bloody Azura stood unscathed in the valley, his feet stepping on the ruins of the wasteland. He looked down at Ji Tianxing, and a contemptuous sneer appeared in his eyes. Haha, lowly human, it's all over. Brothers who didn't vote, don't forget to vote? Chapter 427. Ji Tianxing stood in the ruins with an unyielding expression as he looked up at the bloody Azura. Even though his heart was filled with rage and unwillingness, he was powerless now that his true essence was exhausted. The strength of Ghost Eye's strength and the strangeness of his moves far exceeded his imagination. After all, he only had a strength at the 4th level of the Origin Core stage, whereas Ghost Eye's strength had already reached the peak of the 9th level of the Origin Core stage, and was a half-step Heaven Origin stage expert. Him being able to exchange so many moves with Ghost Eye and persist until now was already extraordinary and inconceivable. In the next moment, the bloody Azura raised his enormous foot high up and fiercely stomped down. Ji Tianxing was powerless to resist, nor was he able to fly or dodge. He could only use the last trace of his strength to desperately run forward. Bang! Amidst the deafening noise, his figure was covered by the bloody Azura's enormous foot and vanished. The wasteland ruins was stomped into dust that filled the sky, and the entire gorge trembled and shook. Muffled rumbling sounds echoed intensely in the gorge, and didn't disappear for a long time. After a short moment, the bloody Azura raised his enormous foot, and an enormous footprint appeared on the ground like a deep pit. Ji Tianxing was lying at the bottom of the deep pit, injured and unconscious since long ago, and his consciousness had entered the boundless darkness. The Kenshin battle robe had already vanished and returned to his body. The star armor lost the support of true essence, and transformed back into a silver ball that rolled down beside him. An enormous violet light formation appeared on the ground, and enveloped the bloody Azura's figure. The bloody Azura's figure dispersed within the violet light, and was quickly swallowed by the violet light formation. Swoosh! The gorge returned to calm, and Ghost Eye's figure appeared and descended at the edge of the pit. He stretched out his hand and struck out a bloody light that grabbed Ji Tianxing from the bottom of the pit. When he was about to turn around and leave, he suddenly thought of something and struck out another bloody light that scooped up the silver ball that was the star armor. Subsequently, Ghost Eye carried Ji Tianxing out of the gorge and ascended the peak of the mountain on the right side of the gorge. On the peak of the mountain, there was an enormous pitch-black devil crow that had always been waiting on the spot. Ghost Eye rode on the demon crow and rushed back to the demon cave. A few hours later, the demon crow flew back to the Misty Moon Mountain Range, 600 miles east of the Spirit Flame City, and landed outside the demon cave. Shwa! Ghost Eye jumped down from the back of the demonic crow. He waved his hand and shot out a bloody light, which engulfed the huge demonic crow. He dragged the unconscious Ji Tianxing and walked into the cave with large strides. In the dimly lit cave, the Blood Demon King sat on the blood essence stone praying mat with his eyes closed. He was using some kind of secret technique. The high priest stood silently in the corner of the cave, resting with his eyes closed. Granny Ghost was not in the cave. Ghost Eye walked into the cave with a cold expression and came before Blood Demon King. Plop! He casually tossed the unconscious Ji Tianxing to the ground, cupped his hands and reporting to Lord Demon King. This subordinate has fulfilled his mission and has captured Ji Tianxing. Hearing this, the Blood Demon King immediately opened his eyes. His eyes flashed with a cold light, as well as a strong sense of joy. That's great! Ghost Eye, you have done very well. You are indeed worthy of being this king's most valued demon general. You can go back and rest. The Blood Demon King's expression was a little excited. He stared at the unconscious Ji Tianxing like a hungry wolf that had seen a lamb. The high priest also opened his eyes with a face full of smiles. He sneered with anticipation. Lord Demon King, our great plan of revival has taken another big step. That's right. The Blood Demon King nodded and said in a serious tone. This king wants to take his Kenshin bloodline. When the Demon King reappears in the world, I will give him a big gift. Then, he grabbed Ji Tianxing with his big hand and walked into the depths of the cave. In the deepest part of the cave, there was a stone door carved into the rock wall. Behind the door was a simple stone room that had been carved out temporarily. It was Granny Ghost's residence. 6 hours ago, Granny Ghost had already set up the burning soul blood dissipation array in the stone room. On the dark rock floor, there were 3 huge skulls. This was the core of the burning soul blood dissipation array. It was also specially prepared to extract Ji Tianxing's Kenshin bloodline. The Blood Demon King pushed open the stone door and walked into the secret room with Ji Tianxing. Granny Ghost, Ji Tianxing has been captured. Granny Ghost stared at the unconscious Ji Tianxing and sneered. Ha ha ha, that's great. Blood Demon King, among the 3 demon generals under your command, only Ghost Eye can take on the big responsibility. The Blood Demon King also showed a playful smile and nodded. So, only he survived and brought Ji Tianxing back. Granny Ghost, how are your preparations? Granny Ghost nodded and said in a proud tone. This old one is ready. You just need to wait patiently. Leave the rest to this old one. Okay, thank you for your trouble. The Blood Demon King threw Ji Tianxing on the ground and turned to leave the secret room. Granny Ghost walked to Ji Tianxing's side with her dove-headed walking stick and looked at him condescendingly. Ha ha ha, little bastard, you still fell into this old one's hands. As she spoke, her left hand pinched a spell and shot out a few blue soul fires to seal Ji Tianxing's true essence. Then, she took out a bronze cauldron from her interspatial ring and placed it on the burning soul blood dissipation array in the middle of the secret room. This bronze cauldron had 3 legs and 6 ears. Its whole body was dark red, as if it was covered with a layer of dried and solidified blood. The body of the cauldron was engraved with patterns of ferocious demons and ghosts. It was also engraved with dense array patterns. It looked extremely gloomy and evil. Granny Ghost stretched out her dove-headed walking stick and gently flicked it. Ji Tianxing flew up and fell into the bronze cauldron. The lid of the cauldron closed with a clang, suppressing Ji Tianxing inside the bronze cauldron. Granny Ghost started to cast a spell to activate the burning soul blood dissipation array, preparing to extract Ji Tianxing's Qinshin bloodline. She walked around the dark red bronze cauldron in a strange way. After a while, the burning soul blood dissipation array was activated. The three skulls on the ground all lit up with red light and opened their eyes strangely. The whole secret room was filled with dark red blood light and was filled with a thick smell of blood. Granny Ghost pinched a spell with her left hand and continuously shot out balls of blue soul fires into the bronze cauldron. Her right hand kept waving her dove-headed walking stick, releasing a thick black fog into the bronze cauldron. The bronze cauldron gradually changed. It lit up with blue flames and dark red blood light. Granny Ghost kept casting a secret spell, releasing powerful demonic power and soul fires, turning the bronze cauldron into a furnace of souls and bloodline. She wanted to use this heaven origin treasure, the soul refining cauldron, to refine Ji Tianxing's soul and bloodline, and extract his Qinshin bloodline. Unknowingly, 6 hours had passed. The power of the burning soul blood dissipation array and the soul refining cauldron were activated to the extreme. Ji Tianxing was imprisoned in the soul refining cauldron. His soul was in a coma and still hadn't woken up. At this time, Granny Ghost stopped and sneered complacently. In 2 days, the soul refining cauldron will extract the Qinshin bloodline. Chapter 428. Granny Ghost left the secret room and returned to the demon cave. Seeing Blood Demon King sitting on the blood essence stone, she walked over with the dove-head staff. Blood Demon King quickly looked at her and asked expectantly, "Granny Ghost, how is it?" Granny Ghost nodded and smiled. "Everything is going well. My soul refining cauldron is refining that kid's soul and bloodline. No matter how strong his soul is or how strong his will is, he won't be able to last 2 days. Within 2 days, you will obtain the Qinshin bloodline that you've been dreaming of." "I'm very good." Blood Demon King nodded with satisfaction. At this time, Ghost Eye had already cultivated for a few hours and had recovered. He walked to the front of the Blood Demon King expressionlessly. After cupping his hands, he presented a spatial ring and a silver ball. "Lord Demon King, this is what I obtained from Ji Tianxing." "Oh!" Blood Demon King raised his eyebrows and took the space ring and silver ball. He carefully examined them. After studying them for a while, he threw the silver ball to Ghost Eye. "Ghost Eye, this is a heaven origin grade armor. This king will give it to you." "Thank you, Lord Demon King." Ghost Eye expressed his gratitude and took the star armor. Blood Demon King used a secret technique to break the seal on the space ring and quickly opened it. He searched for a while and saw many spirit pills and spirit stones, as well as materials for alchemy, equipment forging, and talismans. Finally, he found a token in the space ring. The Blood Demon King took out the token and looked at it. Suddenly his eyes glowed brightly. This should be Ji Tianxing's identity token. With this token, things will be much easier. Humph. Blood Demon King sneered and threw the sky-raising token to Ghost Eye. "Ghost Eye, this king has an even more difficult task for you." Ghost Eye held the sky-raising token with both hands and respectfully said, "Please instruct me, Lord Demon King." The Blood Demon King sneered and said in a low voice, "Ghost Eye, you have the talent of the demonic shadow 100 transformations. You can change into other people's appearance without any flaws. This king orders you to transform into Ji Tianxing's appearance. Take his identity token and enter the sky-bearing sect as him. Wait for an opportunity to assassinate Chu Tianxing." At this point, the Blood Demon King's eyes and tone became extremely evil and sinister. Chu Tianxing is the second strongest person in the sky-bearing sect. He is also the sect master, who controls the overall situation. If you can seriously injure him, our plan will be foolproof. Ji Tianxing is Chu Tiantian's direct disciple. Chu Tiantian will definitely not be on guard against him. You have a very high chance of success. When Granny Ghost heard this, she was surprised. She sneered and said, "Blood Demon King, you are really sinister and vicious." Ha ha ha. However, I'm afraid that Chu Tianxing's strength is even stronger than yours and mine. With Ghost Eye's strength, it will be very difficult to injure him, let alone kill him. The Blood Demon King grinned and sneered with a sinister expression. It's fine. This king is already prepared. Then he stretched out his right hand and used his sharp nails to slowly cut open the right side of his abdomen. Suddenly, the flesh on the right side of his abdomen burst open and demon blood gushed out. Several dark purple demon bones were exposed in the long and narrow wound. Under the incredulous eyes of Granny Ghost and Ghost Eye, the Blood Demon King reached out and pulled out one of his ribs. The Blood Demon King held the bloody demon bone and said with a solemn expression, "This is a reverse bone in this king's body. It has been nurtured for hundreds of years. Its power is not inferior to a top heaven origin grade divine weapon." As he spoke, he urged the surging blood light to wrap around the 1-foot-long reverse bone. In the blink of an eye, the reverse bone shrank rapidly and turned into a finger-long dark purple dagger. The Blood Demon King handed the dark purple dagger to Ghost Eye and said in a solemn tone, "Ghost Eye, you just need to insert this reverse bone demon blade into Chu Tianqing's body, and it will be a success. As long as you succeed, Chu Tianqing will be heavily injured even if he doesn't die. He will be eroded by this king's 100-year-old demon qi, and won't be able to display any fighting strength." Ghost Eye took the reverse bone demon blade with a solemn expression, and looked at the Blood Demon King with a burning gaze. He said in a deep voice, "This subordinate will not disappoint Lord Blood Demon King." The Blood Demon King stretched out his hand to smooth out the wound on his right abdomen, and said with a weak expression, "There's no time to lose. Ghost Eye, begin immediately." "Understood." Ghost Eye cupped his fists and quickly left the Devil Cave with the reverse bone demon blade, heaven-raising token and star armor. After he left the Devil Cave, Granny Ghost asked in a low voice, "Blood Demon King, there are many experts in the heaven-raising sect. Even if Ghost Eye can heavily injure Chu Tianqing, I'm afraid he won't be able to escape, right?" The Blood Demon King glanced at her indifferently and said in a cold tone, "So what? As long as this king's plan succeeds, it will be enough to cripple Chu Tianqing. Even if Ghost Eye sacrifices himself for this plan, it will be a worthy death and a loyal death." Granny Ghost and the High Priest frowned slightly. They felt a trace of fear towards the Blood Demon King's ruthless methods. The Blood Demon King would do anything to achieve his goal. The two of them couldn't help but worry that one day they would be sacrificed by the Blood Demon King. Inside the soul refining cauldron, Ji Tianqing was unconscious. His body was wrapped in blue flames and blood-red light. The serene blue flames caused his soul to endure extreme pain and cold torture. The blood-red light was refining his bloodline, causing the blood in his body to boil and almost burn. His soul was cold, but his body and bloodline were boiling hot. Such a situation where heat and cold intertwined made him suffer incomparable pain. However, his consciousness was still clear, and he could clearly feel the excruciating torture. Ji Tianqing was sure that this kind of torture was even more cruel than being cut into pieces. He also experienced how cruel and terrifying the demon race's methods of torturing people were. However, with great willpower, he gritted his teeth and persisted. No matter how his bloodline boiled, he would not relax, and would not allow the Qinshin bloodline to flow out of his body. As time passed, he gradually could not withstand the torture of the soul-refining cauldron, and his consciousness became more and more hazy. Unknowingly, his consciousness retreated into his soul. In the depths of his soul, a vast scene appeared. In the blue sky, there was a tall youth dressed in white robes walking in the sky. This person was handsome, his facial features firm and cold. His clear eyes contained a domineering aura that looked down on the world. He only wore a snow-white robe, black cloth shoes, and a silver belt around his waist. His long hair was tied up with a blue hair string. He was empty-handed, not carrying a sword or any talisman. However, he walked in the sky as though he was walking on flat ground, each step taking him 1,000 li. On the surface, this person's attire was extremely simple, ordinary and plain. But for some reason he gave off a feeling of being high up in the sky, lying among the clouds, and looking down on the world. Ji Tianqing focused his eyes and observed carefully. He saw some clues. The white robe that the youth wore was made from the ice and snow of the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The silver belt around his waist flickered with resplendent starlight, containing tens of thousands of stars. It was actually a long river of stars. Even the blue hair string that tied his hair was actually a divine beast, the azure dragon. Although Ji Tianqing didn't understand why he was able to see through the young man's clothes, he didn't know what to do. But he faintly understood the identity of the youth and almost blurted out the two words. Chapter 429. Originally, Ji Tianqing's consciousness was on the brink of annihilation, but when he saw that scene and saw Kenshin's figure, his consciousness became much clearer, as if he was supported by strength. His consciousness was completely immersed in the scene as he followed Kenshin's footsteps and looked at the vast world. He saw that under the blue sky, there was an endless dark green mountain range. At the foot of the mountain range, there was a large river meandering like a jade belt. What a magnificent scene of mountains and rivers! However, Ji Tianqing suddenly saw that in the sky ahead, there was a vast expanse of black clouds. The black clouds rolled and churned, covering the blue sky and the scorching sun, emitting a monstrous and cold demonic aura. The demonic aura enveloped a radius of 1,000 miles, causing dozens of mountain ranges to be plunged into darkness. Ji Tianqing looked at the mountain range and saw a 1,000-meter-tall black monster with a body as large as a mountain. It was wantonly destroying the mountains, destroying the world. The monster had 2 large heads, and its face was hideous and terrifying. Its wide mouth revealed fangs, and its scarlet eyes surged with murderous intent. Its appearance was like a giant ape, but it had 6 arms and 2 pairs of large black wings on its back. It dragged a black tail like a dragon's tail. This monster was like a demon god that originated from ancient times. It had a hideous appearance and the power to destroy the world. Ji Tianqing looked at the peaks of the many mountain ranges and saw that there were many ancient palaces, houses, and buildings on the dozens of mountain ranges. There were also many martial artists in green and white robes, fleeing in panic on the mountain range, letting out terrified and desperate cries. In front of the 4-winged demon, tens of thousands of martial artists were like tiny ants. Any struggle or resistance was futile. The tens of thousands of martial artists could not even escape, and could only die in despair. The 4-winged demon casually shot out a ball of blood light, which could shatter a mountain and blast hundreds of thousands of martial artists into smithereens. Its gigantic feet stomped down fiercely, crushing the mountains one after another, turning them into yellow soil and ruins. Tens of thousands of ordinary martial artists were like a swarm of panicked ants, as they were constantly trampled and killed by the 4-winged demon. After the martial artists died, their flesh and blood were corroded by the demonic aura, rotting into streams of dark red blood flow that gathered towards the 4-winged demon. The 4-winged demon absorbed countless streams of blood, and its power became more and more violent, shaking the world. Dozens of martial artists in gold or purple robes were flying high in the sky, using all kinds of martial arts that could split mountains and rivers to attack the 4-winged demon with all their might. However, the attacks of these divine prime martial artists could not hurt the 4-winged demon at all. The flames, the huge swords, and light blades that covered the sky and covered the demon's body could not even break through its protective demonic mist. On the other hand, it was the 4-winged devil's counterattack that caused the Heaven Prime experts to suffer heavy casualties. A casual slap from the 4-winged demon could smash a Heaven Prime expert into smithereens. In a short period of time, more than half of the divine prime martial artists were killed. Dozens of mountains were also destroyed, turning into broken ruins. At this moment, Ji Tianqing saw the white-robed young man walk through the air and arrive above the battlefield. The white-robed youth stood on a 1,000-mile demonic cloud, looking down at the 4-winged demon with a cold expression. He waved his hand and shot out a 10-mile-long sword light. Bang! The 4-winged demon that was massacring the martial artists suddenly had one of its wings cut off by the sword light. Its body staggered and fell to the ground. It immediately got up and looked up at the sky with a ferocious expression. When it saw the white-robed youth's appearance, its body shook. The scarlet demon's eyes were filled with intense shock and fear. "You are Kenshin." The white-robed youth's expression was stern, He ignored the four-winged demon's words and waved his hands again, shooting out two huge golden swords at the four-winged demon. The four-winged demon's body flashed and flew high into the sky. It turned into a black shadow that shot out cold light as it pounced at Kenshin. At that moment, Ji Tianxing clearly saw the white-robed youth, forming a mysterious seal with a wave of his hand. In the sky behind the youth, four huge golden swords that were 1,000 meters tall appeared. Each of the huge swords was extremely sharp and contained a sword will that could tear the sky apart. Moreover, the four huge swords were surrounded by four huge phantoms that were as large as mountains. The first huge sword's phantom was a dark green divine dragon. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it glared at the demonic king. It emitted a sacred and majestic aura. Ji Tianxing recognized it immediately. It was the Eastern Green Dragon. The second huge sword's phantom was a white tiger that was as large as a mountain. It glared angrily and looked like it was about to pounce. It emitted a murderous aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It was the Western White Tiger. The third and fourth phantoms were a flaming divine bird that blotted out the sky, and a divine beast formed by a turtle and snake. They were the Southern Vermilion Bird and the Northern Black Tortoise. The white-robed youth didn't need to use a sword. Instead, he used a Supreme Sword Dao secret technique to unleash the four golden sacred swords that contain the supreme might and destructive power of the four divine beasts. At that moment, he heard the youth's dignified roar. Slash! Instantly, the four golden sacred swords that could split heaven and earth flew across the sky like shooting stars toward the four-winged demon. The phantoms of the four divine beasts also enveloped the golden sacred swords as they descended from the sky toward the four-winged demon with destructive power. In an instant, the demonic clouds in the sky were illuminated by the four divine beasts. The four-winged demon's expression changed drastically. It channeled all its demonic power and roared as it unleashed its ultimate technique. It waved its four wings and six arms and unleashed a blood-red light and demonic mist that blotted out the sky to block the attack of the four divine beasts. Bam! 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 The sky within 1,000 miles immediately became extremely chaotic and turbid. Golden and blood-red light blotted out the sky. The white-robed youth stood high up in the sky and waved his sword fingers repeatedly as he controlled the four divine beasts to attack the four-winged demon. The phantoms of the four divine beasts continued to attack the demon amidst the demonic clouds and blood-red light, causing the sky to darken and the earth to dim as they fought with the demon. The earth-shattering battle lasted for a full 100 breaths. The four-winged demon was riddled with wounds and finally managed to shatter the four divine beasts. It looked up at the white-robed youth in the sky and sneered. Ha ha ha! The invincible Kenshin is only SOO. The white-robed youth looked at it with a cold expression and roared in a dignified voice. Sword, come! As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd fell silent. A golden light shot out from the sword fingers of his left hand and pointed toward the mountains and earth. The sword fingers of his right hand surged with a divine golden light as he pointed toward the distant sky. In the next instant, Ji Tianxing saw a huge gap appear in the dark sky. The gap quickly expanded in all directions and became a huge abyss with a radius of several hundred miles. The end of the abyss was connected to the heavens. Suddenly, a dazzling and divine golden light lit up in the dark abyss. The golden light descended from the heavens and passed through the endless abyss before descending upon this world in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Ji Tianxing could finally see that it was a gigantic sword that was over 100 miles in length. Chapter duplication was because the chapters that had been blocked yesterday were unblocked today. Thus, the system automatically sorted the chapters one by one. For those who could not read them normally, they could just clear the cache in the settings. Chapter 430. As the white-robed young man shouted coldly, the giant divine sword from the ninth heaven stabbed down and drowned the figure of the four-winged demon. The demon had no chance to dodge, let alone resist. Boom! With a deafening sound, the giant divine sword dispersed the demonic clouds in the sky. The body of the four-winged demon, which was over 1,000 meters tall, was smashed into pieces. Even the mountains and rivers down below had been blasted into a tens of thousands of meters deep abyss. The demon's body was destroyed, and only its demonic soul was left. It was suppressed under the abyss by the giant divine sword. Ji Tianxing witnessed this scene with his own eyes. The shock in his heart was indescribable. The four-winged demon was so powerful and ferocious. It killed hundreds of millions of people wantonly. It could kill a powerhouse of the sky origin stage with a flip of its palm. However, when the white-robed young man used the sword, the demon was killed on the spot by the giant divine sword. The young man's strength and means were really extraordinary. He was like a god in the ninth heaven. After a long time, until the scene gradually disappeared, Ji Tianxing was still immersed in the shock of the ninth heaven's sword. Soon the scene in front of him changed. Above a blue lake, a white-robed young man was walking in the air. He was hurrying over 1,000 miles in one step. In the sky behind him, there was also a graceful figure, whose clothes were fluttering in the wind, flying at a high speed, closely following his footsteps. It was a beautiful girl with a bright temperament. She was about 18 or 19 years old. She was wearing a long silver dress with a white gauze on her shoulders. A pair of clear eyes were shining brightly. On her forehead, there was a silver crescent moon mark, which added a bit of holiness and mystery to her. In order to catch up with the white-robed young man, she seemed to have exhausted all her strength. Her pretty face was a little pale, and there were beads of sweat on her forehead. However, her eyes were still bright and excited. There was no slack or discouragement in her eyes. Finally, the young man stopped in the sky and turned around to look at her indifferently. Seeing this, the crescent moon girl's pretty face immediately revealed a deep joy, and she sped up to greet him. When she came closer, she looked at the white-robed young man with burning eyes and said in a gentle voice, "You ice-cold guy, don't you know how to take care of women at all?" There was not the slightest change in the young man's expression. His tone was indifferent as he said, "Mingyu, you disregarded the billions of people of the abandoned Moon Clan, and chased me for millions of miles from the western mainland to this place. Is this what you want to say to me?" The girl called Mingyu wrinkled her cute little nose, and said with a bright smile, This is the longest sentence you've said to me since I met you. Don't call me Mingyue, just call me Little You. Also, where are you going? Did Old Man Long of the Central State Imperial Court ask you to do something for him?" The white-robed young man looked at her expressionlessly and said indifferently, "As the holy maiden of the Moon Clan, how can you have such a girly temperament?" Mingyu's eyes shone even brighter. She smiled and said, "Are you concerned about me? Do you think that I'm not calm and dignified enough? Although I've never liked that since I was young. If you don't like it, I'll change." The young man frowned slightly and said indifferently, "Mingyu, we've only met by chance and don't have much to do with each other. You don't have to be like this, I won't accept it. Soon, I'll leave the profound sky continent. Why are you wasting time with me?" With that, the young man turned and flew away, leaving thousands of miles in one step. Mingyu hurriedly chased after him and shouted anxiously, "Hey, you're leaving the profound sky continent? Where are you going?" However, the white-robed young man's figure flickered and disappeared into the horizon after a few breaths. Mingyu chased for a long time, but could not catch up. She could only stop with a dejected face. She looked in the direction where the white-robed young man left and pouted sullenly. She muttered in a firm tone, "Despicable guy, no matter where you're going, I'll find you." After a while, the image slowly disappeared. Ji Tianxing thought to himself, could she be the Mingyu Demon Empress? Wuxia did not lie to me. The relationship between the Mingyu Demon Empress and Kenshin is indeed one of love. That Mingyu Demon Empress is pure and simple. She's also a rare beauty. It's such a pity that she couldn't marry Kenshin. At this moment, his consciousness suddenly entered the sword god's tomb, and with a swoosh, he appeared under the indomitable sword steel. Why did I suddenly enter Kenshin's tomb? Could it be that the burial of heaven pulled my consciousness in? Ji Tianxing looked up at the heavenly sword steel in confusion and shouted with his mind, "Senior burial of heaven, is that you?" The ancient and distant voice of the burial of heaven immediately came from the heavenly sword steel. "That's right, I let you in." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, I saw some strange images just now. It seems to be something that happened to Kenshin when he was alive. The burial of heaven said solemnly. Those are Kenshin's memories. Ji Tianqing was somewhat puzzled. Why do I have Kenshin's memories? The burial of heaven was silent for a moment, then said, perhaps it has something to do with the Kenshin bloodline you have fused with. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, don't tell me you don't know what's going on. The burial of heaven said calmly, ever since Kenshin fell, I fell into a deep slumber. There are many things that I don't know. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and continued, besides Kenshin's memories, there are many more images of Kenshin's cultivation in the depths of my soul. Kenshin's cultivation methods, and those miraculous martial arts are all imprinted in my soul memories. The burial of heaven said solemnly, you have Kenshin's memories. This is a great opportunity. You can try to cultivate Kenshin's other ultimate arts. Maybe you will gain something. Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. Then his consciousness left the Kenshin tomb and returned to his body. His body and soul were still enduring the refinement of the blue soul fire and blood flames. His soul was cold and still, but his body and bloodline were boiling hot. The hot blood in his chest was about to burst out of his body, but Ji Tianqing gritted his teeth and endured the pain and torture. He used his consciousness to control the power of the Kenshin bloodline and circulate it in his body. Immediately, the Kenshin bloodline burst out with vast divine power and filled his limbs and bones. The sword embryo and sword vein also produced vast amounts of vital energy that allowed him to quickly recover his strength. He endured the pain with great willpower and sat in the soul refining cauldron. He started to comprehend the Kenshin's ultimate arts in his soul. Countless profound and wondrous ultimate arts flashed through his mind. Chapter 431. Ji Tianqing's consciousness was completely immersed in the rising dragon technique. This technique was not a sword technique, but it was inextricably linked to it. The scene that appeared in his mind clearly showed the scene when Kenshin cultivated the rising dragon technique. In the past, Kenshin had encountered countless dangers in the process of becoming an unparalleled expert, and even fell into certain death situations several times. But in the end, Kenshin found a way to escape from the desperate situation, and was able to kill his enemy. As for the sword god's various methods of escaping, they formed the supreme art Rising Dragon. Ji Tianqing was fully focused on comprehending the Rising Dragon technique, completely forgetting the passage of time, and the pain and suffering he was enduring. Unknowingly 6 hours had passed. The power of Kenshin's bloodline had already recovered 30% of his power. As his power gradually recovered, the Kenshin battle robe, hidden in his body, finally reappeared. Swoosh! Kenshin's battle robe flashed with a sacred golden light, and under his control, it turned into a pair of wide golden wings. Ji Tianqing controlled the golden wings to block in front of him, using the wings to cover his body and protect himself. Instantly, the golden wings blocked most of the power of the blue soul fire and dark red blood flames. The pain and suffering he was enduring was also greatly reduced. Not long after, Ji Tianqing finally comprehended the essence of the Rising Dragon technique. Cultivating the Rising Dragon technique allowed one to borrow all external forces and turn them into one's own to break through the predicament. At this moment, he was trapped in the soul refining cauldron, and he was weak and powerless. There was no way he could break through the seal and escape the soul refining cauldron. However, after he comprehended the Rising Dragon technique, he found a way to escape. He focused on cultivating the Rising Dragon technique and tried to refine the blue soul fire and dark red blood flames. These two flames were the power of the soul refining cauldron and the burning soul and blood dissipation array, and were originally used to torture and refine him. Under normal circumstances, he could only desperately resist these two flames to prevent his body and soul from being refined. But after he cultivated the Rising Dragon technique, he could do the opposite and refine these two flames for his own use. Soon, Ji Tianqing used the Rising Dragon technique to refine a ball of blue soul fire and blood flames. The blue soul fire and dark red blood flames mixed together forming wisps of air mixed with red and blue, and entered his body. His power was suddenly increased, and his power recovered faster. The Rising Dragon technique is amazing. It can actually refine Granny Gui's soul fire and Blood Demon King's blood flames. After I completely master this technique, I can refine the soul fire and blood demonic cauldron's soul and recover my power. Ji Tianqing thought to himself. He was shocked by the miraculous effect of the Rising Dragon. As time went by, his understanding of the Rising Dragon technique became deeper and deeper. As he refined more and more soul fire and blood red flames, his power was quickly recovering. Another 6 hours had passed, and his power had actually completely recovered. At this time, soul and blood cauldron him. Ji Tianqing's spirit was greatly shaken, and his heart was filled with anticipation. He continued to cultivate the Rising Dragon technique and refine the soul fire and blood flames within the cauldron to strengthen his power. Along with the strands of red and blue airflow entering his body, his strength ceaselessly increased. Half a day later, when the soul fire and blood flames he refined had reached the limit, he borrowed the energy of these 2 flames to open up another 2 meridians. In this way, he possessed 16 meridians. When he used the soul fire and blood flames to temper the 2 newly opened meridians into sword veins, he naturally attained the 5th level of the Origin Core stage. After advancing to the 5th level of the Origin Core stage, his strength had doubled, and his condition had reached its peak. Only half of the soul fire and blood flames within the soul refining cauldron remained, and they still surged with terrifying might. Ji Tianqing continued to cultivate, using the Rising Dragon technique, to refine the soul fire and blood flames, and condense them into a ball of light mixed with red and blue. A day later, when he completely refined the soul fire and blood flames within the cauldron, a fist-sized red and blue ball of light appeared before him. Within the ball of light, the dark blue soul fire and dark red blood flames were compressed to the limit, and they contained a might that could destroy the heavens and the earth. The soul refining cauldron became dim and lightless, and its strength was extremely weak. Ji Tianqing opened his eyes and carefully observed the situation within the cauldron. This soul refining cauldron was a heaven origin grade treasure, and only with a formidable heaven origin formation could it exert a formidable might. Ji Tianqing understood that if he wanted to escape from the soul refining cauldron, then he had to break the formation within the cauldron. Fortunately, his attainments in the formation Dao had reached the Grandmaster stage, and he knew the various heaven origin formations like the back of his hand. He only used 2 hours to see through the formation within the soul refining cauldron, and found the method to break it. After that, he executed his formation Dao ultimate technique, and struck out with his palm, to start breaking the formation within the cauldron. In the dark stone chamber, the high priest sat in the corner with his eyes closed, cultivating silently. Granny Ghost said that it would take about 2 days to extract Ji Tianqing's Kenshin bloodline, using the soul refining cauldron. She and the Blood Demon King had to go out to do something, so the high priest stayed in the stone chamber to watch over the soul refining cauldron. Originally, the soul refining cauldron was activated, and the soul refining cauldron was surrounded by dark red blood flames and dark blue soul fire. The stone chamber was filled with dark red blood light and surging with a strong demonic aura. At this time, the high priest noticed that the dark red blood light in the stone chamber was getting dimmer and dimmer, and the demonic aura was gradually weakening. He subconsciously ended his cultivation and opened his eyes in confusion. When he saw that the soul fire and blood flames on the soul refining cauldron had disappeared, he immediately widened his eyes and revealed a puzzled expression. Swoosh! The high priest stood up and quickly walked to the side of the soul refining cauldron, frowning in confusion. Strange, why did the soul fire and blood flames on the soul refining cauldron suddenly extinguish? Lord Demon King and Granny Ghost have already gone out to hunt for flesh and blood to replenish their power. Lord Demon King ordered me to watch over the soul refining cauldron, so it's best that nothing goes wrong at this time. The high priest muttered silently, his eyes and expression a little solemn. He vaguely felt that something might have happened to the soul-refining cauldron. However, the soul-refining cauldron was Granny Ghost's treasure. Granny Ghost was fully in charge of extracting the Kenshin bloodline. Even though he was puzzled and worried, he did not dare to open the soul-refining cauldron to check the situation inside. He could only pray silently in his heart that nothing would go wrong, and that Lord Demon King and Granny Ghost would return soon. However, at this time, the soul-refining cauldron suddenly emitted a clang sound, breaking the silence of the stone chamber. The high priest's body suddenly shook, and he frowned as he looked at the lid of the soul-refining cauldron. He saw that the thick and simple lid of the cauldron had actually opened a crack. This is bad. The soul-refining cauldron has been opened. The high priest's expression changed, and he immediately realized that something was wrong. Chapter 432. Just as the high priest was about to check on the soul-refining cauldron, he saw a golden light shoot out of the cauldron and the lid fly off. His expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with anger and anxiety. Damn it! How could this be? He never expected that something would happen to the soul-refining cauldron at this moment. In a moment of desperation, he stretched out his wide palms and shot out a dark red light towards the cauldron lid. At this moment, a golden light flew out of the soul-refining cauldron. There was a figure in the golden light. It was a young man in a white robe with a pair of golden wings. It was Ji Tianxing. He had just rushed out of the soul-refining cauldron when he saw the high priest grabbing the cauldron lid with both hands and staring at him in shock. Without hesitation, he waved his palms and released a huge flaming sword radiance towards the high priest. Crimson Dragon Flash. The flaming sword radiance exuded a terrifying and violent power. It lit up the entire stone room with a dazzling light. The high priest came back to his senses and hurriedly held up the cauldron lid as a shield in front of him. The crimson dragon flash hit the cauldron lid with a deafening sound. Bam! The lid of the cauldron was sent flying and smashed into the rock wall, creating a huge crater and numerous cracks on the wall. The crimson dragon flash was also destroyed by the impact and exploded into a sky full of bloody shards that scattered in all directions. The high priest took the opportunity to counterattack. He waved his palms and shot out dozens of bloody palm shadows that covered half of the stone room towards Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing did not want to fight, nor did he want to tangle with the high priest. He was wrapped in a dazzling golden light as he broke through the thick stone door with great strength and entered the cave. Tens of blood-red palm silhouettes slapped on the wall and the door of the stone room, causing a series of loud bangs. A few huge handprints were left on the wall, and the stone door was smashed into pieces. Seeing Ji Tianxing escape from the stone room, the high priest chased after him without hesitation and roared with killing intent. Ji Tianxing, you little bastard, don't even think about escaping. Ji Tianxing spread out his spiritual consciousness and immediately probed the situation inside the cave. The cave was dark and gloomy, filled with gloomy ghost chi and demonic fog, but Granny Ghost and Blood Demon King were not in the cave. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing secretly heaved a sigh of relief and fled towards the entrance of the cave as fast as lightning. Shwa! He flapped his golden wings and turned into a golden streak of light. He passed through the cave as fast as lightning and rushed to the cave entrance in the blink of an eye. The entrance of the cave was sealed by an array, and there was a layer of light red light screen. Before he could study the array at the entrance of the cave, the high priest chased after him. Green lightning devil palm. The high priest roared in anger and used a demonic art. He waved his palm, creating a sky full of bloody palm shadows that rushed over like rolling thunder. Ji Tianxing could only use the flying star sword technique to counterattack. Water split. He used 100% of his strength to release a 10-meter-long enormous golden sword that fiercely slashed towards the high priest. The enormous sword collided with the bloody palm shadows that covered the sky, exploding out with a muffled rumbling sound that reverberated endlessly within the cave. Both of them were unable to gain the upper hand, and were both forced back a few steps. Ji Tianxing didn't know the whereabouts of Granny Ghost and Blood Demon King, so he wasn't willing to get entangled with the high priest to avoid delaying time. Although he'd just advanced to the 5th level of the origin core stage, and his strength had doubled explosively, but if he were to go against Granny Ghost and Blood Demon King, he would absolutely have no possibility of escaping, and would be captured again. When the high priest launched another attack, in order to end the battle quickly, he didn't hesitate to withdraw a fist-sized ball of flame, and used all his strength to blast it towards the high priest. Go to hell, bastard! That ball of flame that was condensed to the extreme contained 3 types of flames. Not only was there a dark blue soul fire, there was also a dark red blood flame, and a crimson red crimson true fire. This 3-colored ball of flame was precisely Ji Tianxing's soul fire and blood flame that he'd refined earlier, plus his crimson true fire. The ball of flame instantly blasted onto the high priest, exploding out with a muffled bang. Instantly, the high priest's protective bloody light shattered, and his entire body flew out, fiercely smashing onto the hard rock wall. A human-shaped dent was smashed out of the rock wall, and dense cracks split open. That ball of flame also erupted with a might that could destroy the heavens and the earth, gushing out with boundless 3-colored flames. The dark blue soul fire, the dark red blood flame, and the crimson red crimson true fire instantly filled the entire cave. The terrifying might that was like the full-force strike of a Sky Origin stage powerhouse instantly exploded out within the cave. Bang! The 3,000-meter-tall mountain was shaken to the point of ceaselessly trembling, on the verge of collapse, and countless ravines split open. The terrifying might of the 3-colored flames fiercely bombarded the formation at the entrance of the cave, instantly shattering that layer of bloody light barrier. The high priest was also engulfed by the destructive power. He immediately opened his mouth, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and fell into the rubble with severe injuries. Immediately after, his body was swallowed by the 3-colored flames, and his black robe and purple hair were burning up. The extremely cold dark blue soul fire invaded his head and soul, causing his consciousness to blur, and his soul to gradually disappear. The dark red blood flame, and the crimson true fire burned his flesh and blood, turning him into charcoal. Enduring the heart-wrenching pain, he let out shrill cries and wails, struggling and rolling on the rubble. Ji Tianxing wrapped his golden wings around his body, blocking the power of the 3-colored flames, and was not injured. He glanced at the high priest in the sea of fire, and saw that the high priest's flesh and blood and soul were burning up. Obviously, he was not going to survive. You brought this upon yourself, you can't live. Ji Tianxing shouted in a cold voice, and without hesitation, he turned around and rushed out of the cave, escaping from the cave. Swoosh! He flapped his golden wings and flew out of the cave at lightning speed, arriving in the sky above a forest. Turning his head to look back at the cave, he saw that the 1,000-meter-tall mountain was still shaking. Several huge ravines had appeared on the mountain, and countless earth and boulders had collapsed on the mountain peak. 3-colored flames kept spewing out of the distorted hole, burning the forest around the hole to ashes. I have to leave this place as soon as possible. If the Blood Demon King and Granny Ghost come back, I'll be dead for sure. Ji Tianxing muttered in his heart, and hurriedly flapped his golden wings, flying into the distance. His figure turned into a golden stream of light, and quickly disappeared into the horizon. It was evening, and the sun was setting in the west. Ji Tianxing's back was facing the setting sun, and he flew east as fast as lightning, rushing back in the direction of the Sky Pillar sect. While flying, he had the time to check his situation. Only now did he realize that his interspatial ring was gone, and so was his star armor. Fortunately, the inconspicuous 100 treasures brocade pouch was still hanging on his waist, and had not been taken away. He checked it with his spirit sense, and saw that Qian Yu and the Black Dragon sword were still in the pouch. However, Qian Yu and the Black Dragon sword were unable to withstand the refining of the soul refining cauldron, and had been seriously injured and unconscious. Ji Tianxing used his spirit sense to call them several times, but he was unable to wake them up. Chapter 433. Inside the Sky Pillar sect, at the top of the Red Cloud Peak. A handsome young man in a white robe walked through the square expressionlessly toward the Sky Pillar Palace. This person's figure and appearance were no different from Ji Tianxing. Even his expression and temperament were exactly the same. Obviously he was Gui Tong, who had sneaked into the Sky Pillar sect. He had used the demonic Shadow 100 transformations to change into Ji Tianxing's appearance. He was also holding the Sky Pillar token and wearing the star armor. Of course, he could pass off as the real one. Soon, Gui Tong entered the palace and arrived outside a secret room. The black-robed guard guarding the door of the secret room was very familiar with him, and his cold eyes softened. Gui Tong looked at the black-robed guard and said expressionlessly, "I have something to report to Master." The black-robed guard nodded and cast a spell to open the secret room's defensive formation and open the door. Gui Tong walked into the secret room with an indifferent expression and saw a burly middle-aged man with a dignified aura sitting in the dimly lit room. This person was the sect master Chu Tianxing. He sat on a large jade chair with a black turtle shell on the stone table in front of him. The tortoise shell shone with a lustrous brilliance, revealing countless specks of starlight and silver lines, emitting a mysterious and simple aura. Chu Tianxing was casting a spell to control the light spots and silver lines on the turtle shell, as if he was deducing some heavenly secret. A cold light flashed in Gui Tong's eyes, but he immediately suppressed it. He stepped in front of Chu Tianxing, cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Disciple greets sect master." "No need for formalities." Chu Tianxing nodded slightly and waved his hand to send out a silver light to put away the black turtle shell. He looked up at Gui Tong with a gratified expression and said softly, "Tianxing, did your trip to the Beast King Valley go smoothly?" Gui Tong nodded calmly. "Everything went smoothly. There were no twists and turns." That's good." Chu Tianxing was originally a little worried, but now that he saw that Ji Tianxing was safe, he was completely relieved. He frowned and thought for a moment before continuing to ask, "Tianxing, after you gave the item to the Beast King, what did he say?" Hearing this, Ghost Eye's eyes flickered with excitement. He was stunned for a moment before he nodded and said, "Senior Beast King instructed me to pass on a message to Master. This message is very confidential." "Oh, what news?" Chu Tianxing raised his eyebrows, revealing a look of anticipation. Ghost Eye walked to his side, bent down, and whispered into his ear, "Senior Beast King asked this disciple to tell you, your death has come." When Gui Tong said the first half of his sentence, his right hand had already reached behind Chu Tianxing's back. A small purple blade appeared in his palm. It was the reverse bone devil blade. As he spoke the second half of his sentence, his right hand erupted with the strength of his entire life, as he ruthlessly slapped Chu Tianxiang's back. Boom! With a muffled sound, the reverse bone devil blade pierced into Chu Tianxing's body. Caught off guard, Chu Tianxiang was not prepared for Ji Tianxing's sneak attack. He didn't even have time to cast a true Yuan shield. Ghost Eye's palm strike, which had been prepared for a long time, immediately sent him tumbling to the ground. The moment the reverse bone devil blade pierced into his body, it immediately erupted with a torrent of demonic qi, instantly damaging his internal organs and corroding his meridians. PFFF. Chu Tianxing spat out a mouthful of blood, his face as pale as paper. He endured the heart-wrenching pain and turned his head to look at Ghost Eye. He angrily shouted, "You're not Tianxing. You're a demon spawn." The reverse bone devil blade's sinister cold qi and turbulent demonic qi made him instantly understand everything. The Ji Tianxing in front of him was definitely a fake. He was definitely a demon spawn in disguise. Ghost Eye's plan had succeeded, and his scheme had succeeded. There was no longer any need to hide. He revealed a sinister expression and said with a cold sneer, "Ha ha ha. Chu Tianxing, going against my clan will not end well. Go to hell." As soon as he finished speaking, Ghost Eye raised his right palm and struck out a dark red light towards Chu Tianxing. Although Chu Tianxing was heavily injured, his internal organs and meridians having been torn apart by the reverse bone devil blade, his cultivation had plummeted, but he was still a divine prime expert. He gritted his teeth and endured his injuries, raised his hand, and struck out at Ghost Eye. Bam! The two palms collided, and a loud sound exploded, reverberating fiercely in the secret room. A violent burst of energy burst out, instantly shattering the tables and chairs in the secret room. The powerful force knocked Chu Tianqing back 3 meters, his back slamming into the wall of the secret room. Ghost Eye, on the other hand, was sent flying backward and smashed hard against the door of the secret room, causing a muffled thud. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. The Atlas medallion hanging on his waist also fell to the ground. But he immediately got up, waved his sleeve to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and pounced on Chu Tianqing again. At this moment, the secret room's stone door suddenly opened. The black-robed guard outside the secret room was alarmed by the commotion and rushed in like lightning. When he saw the situation in the room, he unsheathed his sword and slashed at Ghost Eye without hesitation. "How dare you assassinate the sect master? Die!" Ghost Eye's figure flashed, dodging the black-robed guard's sword, and immediately rushed out of the secret room fleeing. The black-robed guard hurriedly rushed to Chu Tianqing's side, anxiously asking, "Sect master, how are your injuries?" Chu Tianqing circulated his cultivation to resist the reverse bone devil blade's corrosion, and shouted in a low voice, "Don't worry about me. Quickly chase after him. Don't let that demon escape." "Understood," the black-robed guard shouted, and immediately rushed out of the secret room with his sword, chasing after Ghost Eye. Soon, the black-robed guards of the Atlas Palace were alerted, and immediately sent out emergency signal arrows. The two elders living on the Crimson Firmament Peak heard the news, and together with the black-robed guards, they joined forces to kill the fleeing Ghost Eye. Inside the secret room, Chu Tianqing sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes closed, circulating his cultivation to suppress the demonic energy in his body. The reverse bone devil blade was like a demonic dragon, wreaking havoc in his body, crazily destroying his internal organs, meridians, limbs, and bones. His entire body surged with jet-black demonic energy, flickering with intense flames. His face alternated between pitch black and golden. Not long after, Xiang Wuji and Yun Yao rushed into the secret room with hurried expressions. Yun Yao had just finished recuperating and cultivating last night. When she heard that the Atlas Palace was in chaos, she hurried over to check on the situation. Xiang Wuji was watering the flowers in the Great Peace Palace. When he saw the emergency signal arrow, he knew that something big had happened, and hurriedly rushed to the Atlas Palace. Seeing Chu Tianqing's back covered in blood and surrounded by demonic energy, Xiang Wuji anxiously asked, "Chu Tianqing, what's going on? Who injured you?" Chu Tianqing said in a low voice, "The remnants of the demon race disguised themselves as Tianqing and assassinated me when I wasn't paying attention." Hearing this, Xiang Wuji was so angry that his face turned ashen, and his eyes surged with killing intent. "That damned demon worm, how dare he be so arrogant? This old man will wring his neck." After shouting angrily, he quickly left the secret room and chased after Ghost Eye. At this time, Chu Tianqing saw a token on the ground. It was the Atlas medallion he had given to Ji Tianqing. When he was fighting with Ghost Eye just now, this medallion had fallen from Ghost Eye's body. Chu Tianqing suddenly thought of something, and hurriedly said to Yun Yao, "Tianqing's Atlas medallion and star armor have fallen into the hands of the remnants of the demon race. Not good. Tianqing must have met with misfortune and fallen into the hands of the demons." Chapter 434. Night fell, and the dark night sky was dotted with stars. A bright moon hung high in the sky, sprinkling down millions of miles of flawless moonlight. Ji Tianqing flapped his golden wings and sped through the night sky. His expression was somewhat gloomy, and his heart was filled with worry. He had been flying for 4 hours now, but the little black dragon and Qian Yu had not woken up. Their injuries were clearly not light. It did not matter if he lost his interspatial ring and starry armor. Those were mere worldly possessions that he did not care about. However, if anything happened to Qian Yu and the little black dragon, his losses would be too great. He looked indifferently at the night sky in front of him, and secretly increased his flying speed. An hour later, he suddenly saw a majestic mountain more than 3,000 meters tall in front of him. He could vaguely make out a huge pagoda standing on the mountain peak, under the hazy moonlight. That towering mountain peak, and the 1,000-meter-tall pagoda, on top of it seemed somewhat familiar to him. He frowned and thought for a moment, then suddenly remembered. That was the Seven Stars Pagoda. Ji Tianxing looked up at the Seven Stars Pagoda on the mountain peak, and saw a bright full moon hanging in the night sky behind the pagoda. For some reason, that moon was exceptionally large, exuding a bright silver moonlight that enveloped the entire Seven Stars Pagoda. The Seven Stars Pagoda bathed in the moonlight, and the top of the pagoda flickered with a dazzling silver light, appearing extremely mysterious. Ji Tianxing thought of Ji Ke, who was still sleeping at the top of the pagoda, and could not help but fly toward that mountain peak. He quickly arrived at the top of the mountain, and stood on the flat ground below the pagoda. The Seven Stars Pagoda under the night sky was quiet and serene. Only the night wind whistled through the empty mountain peak, making it seem very bleak and lonely. Ji Tianxing stood at the bottom of the pagoda in a daze for a long time, looking up at the top of the pagoda. Ji Ke's figure appeared in his mind. He thought of her pure and cute smile, and recalled every little thing that had happened since they met. Scenes of the past flashed through his mind, evoking his memories. He was immersed in his memories, quietly standing at the bottom of the pagoda, allowing the night wind to blow at his robes and hair. After a long time, he finally woke up from his memories and restrained his thoughts. He looked up at the top of the pagoda and said to himself, "Ku, now that the Tianjin sect is eyeing us covetously, and the demon race is ready to make a move, our sect is in a very dangerous situation. You can sleep peacefully in this seven-star pagoda. Rest well, and refine your Crimson Star bloodline. Don't worry. Once the sect's crisis is resolved, I will come and take you back." Although Ji Tianxing's voice was not loud, it contained a sense of firmness that spread through the night sky. At the peak of the Seven Stars Pagoda, the spirit soul crystal in the middle of the Seven Stars array was flickering with dazzling starlight, releasing boundless stellar energy. A palm-sized jade soul coffin was lying quietly on the spirit soul crystal. The exquisite and mysterious jade soul coffin was enveloped by a layer of silver moonlight, exuding a mysterious and cold aura. Ji Ke, dressed in a green robe, lay peacefully in the coffin, as if he was sleeping. Her delicate cheeks faintly revealed a trace of redness, making her complexion look quite good. The hazy and bright moonlight enveloped her body, moving slowly like flowing water, constantly injecting pure stellar energy into her body. On her fair and smooth forehead, there was a silver crescent moon mark that flickered from time to time with her slow breathing. This silver crescent moon mark made her temperament mysterious and holy, as tranquil and flawless as the bright moon in the night sky. At this moment, Ji Tianxing was talking to himself under the pagoda, saying those words with a firm tone. Ji Ke, who was sleeping in the jade soul coffin, seemed to have sensed something and slowly opened her eyes. When she opened her eyes, the silver crescent moon mark on her forehead immediately disappeared. Ji Ke looked up at the translucent jade soul coffin lid, and saw the dark starry sky, as well as the densely packed stars. A trace of confusion and doubt flashed through her big clear eyes. "Big brother Tianxing." Her lips moved slightly as she let out a murmur filled with longing. She frowned and slowly sat up, reaching out to try to open the jade soul coffin lid. Suddenly, the Seven Stars array lit up with dazzling starlight, bursting with a powerful and mysterious force, instantly destroying the array that Ji Tianxing had set up to protect the jade soul coffin. Then, an invisible and majestic force enveloped the jade soul coffin, and flew towards the sea of clouds at the edge of the Seven Stars platform. Swoosh! The jade soul coffin was ejected out of the Seven Stars Pagoda by the Seven Stars array, passing through the sea of clouds, and turning into a hazy ray of moonlight, falling towards the peak of the mountain below the pagoda. As the jade soul coffin kept falling, the size of the jade soul coffin also increased rapidly. Ji Ke was still trapped in the jade soul coffin, not knowing her situation, and unable to leave the jade soul coffin. Ji Tianxing muttered a few words to himself, and was about to withdraw his gaze from the pagoda, preparing to leave. But at this moment, he suddenly saw a silver brilliance at the peak of the 7 Stars Pagoda. That silver light streaked across the night sky like a meteor, falling rapidly towards the pagoda. What's that? Ji Tianqing frowned, a touch of doubt flashing in his eyes. He stared at the silver light that was getting brighter and brighter, carefully observing it for a while. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind, vaguely guessing something. He immediately flapped his golden wings, flew into the dark night sky, and flew towards the silver light. After 2 breaths, when he arrived near the silver light, he saw clearly that the silver light was enveloping a jade coffin. Sure enough, as he had guessed, the jade soul coffin in the silver light was the jade soul coffin that he had placed at the top of the pagoda. Ji Tianqing did not hesitate to meet it. He activated his majestic true core strength, condensing it into 2 giant golden palms, and hugged the jade soul coffin that was falling rapidly. The falling speed of the jade soul coffin immediately slowed down, and the impact gradually dissipated. After a while, Ji Tianqing hugged the jade soul coffin and landed steadily on the ground below the pagoda. I clearly placed the jade soul coffin in the 7 stars array. How could it suddenly be ejected by the 7 stars pagoda? After landing, Ji Tianqing laid the jade soul coffin flat on the ground and quickly checked the condition of the jade soul coffin. Fortunately, the jade soul coffin was intact, and Jiku was still in the jade soul coffin unharmed. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing heaved a sigh of relief. However, he saw that Jiku had woken up in the coffin and was staring at him with her big eyes, her beautiful face full of excitement. Cuckoo has woken up? That's great. Ji Tianqing was also delighted, and he quickly cast a spell to open the jade soul coffin. Jiku immediately jumped out of the coffin, opened her arms, and threw herself into his arms. Brother Tianqing, I finally found you. Woohoo! Brother Tianqing, don't leave me behind in the future, okay? Jiku hugged him tightly, as if she was afraid that he would run away. With tears on her face, she told him how much she missed him and felt wronged. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a ray of light to put away the jade soul coffin. He stretched out his arms to hug Jiku, patted her back gently, and said in a gentle voice, Cuckoo, it's good that you're okay. Don't cry. I won't leave you alone. Jiku smiled through her tears and nodded repeatedly. Well, I knew it. Dreams are the opposite. How could Brother Tianqing leave me alone and ignore me? Ji Tianqing stretched out his hand to wipe away the tears on her beautiful face and the corner of her eyes. He asked in confusion, Dream? Cuckoo, what dream did you have? Jiku's beautiful face suddenly blushed. She secretly glanced at Ji Tianqing and whispered, I had a very long dream. There were too many things in the dream, and I can't remember some of them clearly. However, I was dreaming just now. The 2 of us were flying in the sky. You were flying in front, and I was chasing after you. I kept shouting for you to stop and wait for me, but you were cold to me. You flew faster and faster and further away. Later, I couldn't find you. Brothers, where are the recommendation tickets? Chapter 435. Ji Tianqing vaguely felt a sense of déjà vu as he listened to her talk about the dream. But he didn't think too much about it. He reached out and pinched Jiku's little face and said with a smile, Silly girl. How can I be so cold to you? It's just your dream. He comforted Jiku, and then asked about the matter with concern. How are you feeling now, Ko? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Jiku frowned, and thought for a while before shaking her head. I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere. She turned her head to look at the 7 stars pagoda behind her, and then looked at the dark night sky around her. She then asked with a puzzled expression, Big Brother Tianqing, where are we? Why are we in this desolate place? Ji Tianqing patiently explained, This is the 7 stars pagoda, the place where you went into seclusion to recuperate. I just came back from a faraway place and passed by here. I thought that you were sleeping here, so I came to see you. I didn't expect that you would end your cultivation and be ejected from the 7 stars pagoda. Jiku was confused. She blinked her big eyes and asked, Big Brother Tianqing, have I been sleeping for a long time? Can you tell me what happened after I fainted? Okay, Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. But let's talk on the way. After saying that, Ji Tianxing flapped his golden wings and flew into the dark night sky with Ji Ku, returning to the Sky Pillar sect as fast as lightning. On the way back to the Sky Pillar sect, Ji Tianxing told Ji Ku the whole story. Only then did Ji Ku understand that the reason why she fainted for no reason was because she had awakened the Red Star bloodline, and there was a mysterious power hidden in her body. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing borrowed the Jade Soul coffin and climbed up the 7 Stars Pagoda, placing her in the 7 Stars array and allowing her to survive this tribulation. The time inside the 7 Stars Pagoda was different from the outside world. 2 months had passed in the outside world, but she had been sleeping in the 7-Star Pagoda for 2.5 years. Under Ji Tianxing's reminder, she silently circulated her energy to check her body's condition, only to discover that her Red Star bloodline had been completely activated. The mysterious power in her body was still there. It was still violent, powerful, and unfathomable. Moreover, her cultivation base had improved by leaps and bounds. She had actually reached level 8 of the Tongxian stage. In such a short period of time, her strength had increased tremendously from the 7th level of the True Energy stage to the 8th level of the Tongxian stage. This was equivalent to her only using 2 months to grow from an ordinary outer court disciple to an elite disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. Ji Tianxing flew for a couple of hours and covered another 1,000 miles. It was early in the morning, and he and Ji Ku were still about 800 kilometers away from the Sky Pillar sect. Suddenly, Ji Tianxing saw a white figure appear in the sky in front of him, flying over at lightning speed. When he got closer, he saw that the huge white figure was actually a snow-white spirit crane. Moreover, the appearance of the spirit beast white crane was very familiar to him. Could it be eldest senior sister's mount? This thought appeared in Ji Tianxing's mind, and he sped up towards the spirit crane. After a while, the distance between him and the spirit crane shortened to a few kilometers. At this moment, he finally saw clearly that there was indeed a beautiful woman in white standing on the spirit crane's back. It was Yin Yao. When he saw Yin Yao had already seen him. Seeing that he was safe and sound, Yin Yao finally felt relieved. She hurriedly stopped the spirit crane in the air. Ji Tianxing flew onto the spirit crane's back with Ji Ku and came to Yin Yao's side. Yin Yao stared at Ji Tianxing and carefully sized him up. When she saw that he was not injured, the worry in her eyes gradually dissipated. Junior brother Tianxing, I've finally found you. Ji Tianxing asked in confusion. Eldest senior sister. You came here specially to find me? What happened? Yin Yao glanced at Ji Ku and rode the spirit crane back to the Sky Pillar sect. Let's talk as we walk. Junior brother Tianxing, last night, a remnant of the demon clan disguised as you, holding your sky-raising token and wearing your star armor, he snuck into the red firmament peak to assassinate Sect Master. Suddenly hearing this news, Ji Tianxing's expression changed. What? A demon actually disguised as me and tried to assassinate Sect Master? His face was full of shock and anger, and a cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. No wonder I lost my space ring and star armor. So that's why. Damn demons. They're really despicable and sinister to the extreme. Ji Tianxing cursed in a low voice and hurriedly asked Yin Yao. Eldest senior sister, is Master injured? Yin Yao said with a solemn expression. That demon remnant had planned it long ago, but Master was caught off guard and the demon got away with it. Ji Tianxing's mood became heavier and heavier, and he asked, How are Master's injuries? Yin Yao said in a low voice. Master's injuries are very serious. But he also saw through the demon's identity and had the elders hunt him down. That demon remnant couldn't escape, and was caught on the spot by the Grand Elder. He was slashed 49 times before being executed. Master realized that you were in danger, and was worried that you would fall into the hands of the demons. So he sent me, the elders, and the deacons to look for you. After a pause, she said with a solemn expression, Junior brother Tianxing, let's hurry back to the sect as soon as possible. You must see Master. Master is seriously injured, but he refuses to go into seclusion to heal. He insists on waiting in the secret room for you to return. He has something to tell you face to face. Seeing Yun Yao's solemn expression, Ji Tianxing had a bad premonition in his heart. He clenched his fists and looked at the sky in front of him with a frown. Although there was a rising sun in the sky was filled with multicolored light. His heart was shrouded in a layer of haze, and the sky seemed to be obscured by the demon aura, making it very dark. He could guess that his master, Chu Tiansheng, was assassinated by the demons and was seriously injured. This would definitely make the demons' actions more rampant. Next, the Sky Pillar sect's situation would become more and more dangerous. Unknowingly, 4 hours had passed. The spirit crane carried Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, and Ji Ke back to the Sky Pillar sect and landed on the Crimson Firmament Peak. Yun Yao brought the spirit crane back to the White Cloud Hall, while Ji Ke returned to the Spirit Medicine Hall to report to the Spirit Medicine Elder that they were safe. Ji Tianxing walked to the Sky Pillar Hall alone and rushed to Chu Tianxing's secret room with a solemn expression. When he arrived at the door of the secret room, the black-robed guard hurriedly opened the door and said in a low voice, "Tianxing, the sect master has been waiting for you for a long time. Quickly go in." Ji Tianxing nodded and hurriedly walked into the secret room. As soon as he entered the secret room, he felt that the room was filled with dense demon aura, as well as a cold chill. He raised his head to look at the center of the secret room and saw his master, Chu Tiansheng, sitting on a large jade chair with a pale face. At this moment, Chu Tiansheng was no longer as dignified and domineering as he was in the past. His aura was chaotic, and his body and spirit were withered. His long hair had turned snow white and was messily draped over his shoulders. Ji Tianxing simply couldn't believe his eyes when he saw this scene. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.